So we started the recording, so Kelsey, you can go ahead.
All right. All right. So, hey, everyone. I'm Kelsey. First off, I'd like to just say thank you to my nurse friend, absolute mentor, Sophia, for simply asking me to be a small part of this by introducing the 5 panelists and moderator involved in this discussion on how the world is transitioning into virtual reality today. I myself first learned of SustainHope about 4 months ago when I attended an event Sophia had invited me to as a brand new nurse where she was working to support. I'm already amazed at the impact that it has made, and I know the Lord will continue to have his hand on it, and I know this organization will continue to thrive so everyone can continue to keep receiving the education they so do deserve. Again, thank you, Sophia, for inviting me to this Zoom webinar so I can learn as well about transitioning to virtual reality from the upcoming speakers. But first, yes, we will open up in prayer with Rosalind Reed.
Hi, everybody. Again, thank you for all joining in, and we are going to prayer. May we bow down for prayer. Father God, we humbly come to you to grant your special grace to this meeting today, Father. Lord, we thank you for the unique talents each person has and the gifts of education in every form. Father God, as these panelists are preparing to learn, I pray that they have confidence in their foundation and grace to be their guide and hope to be the compass towards a brighter future. I pray that they would have eyes to see the needs of others around them and a heart to love thy neighbor to help. Father, I pray for them to face each day with positivity, knowing that no matter what, you are in everything and everything will be okay. Father God, I want to pray for the coaches and their teachers, for the wisdom and a heart that is there to serve, especially in today's Zoom, Father. I trust and believe that you are with us today. Father, may your will be done. I pray, trusting through the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, that you will be with us. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. And that was a prayer. Enjoyed the Zoom meeting today.
Thank you, Rosalind. Am I muted? Okay, there we go. Thank you, Rosalind. That was beautiful. So I'll start off by introducing the first panelist, Mrs. Tatyana. She is a candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts in Public Policy at NYU Abu Dhabi.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tatyana Brown. And just like she said, I'm a student at NYU Abu Dhabi. I'm a rising junior, studying social research and public policy, and a little bit of film as well. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm from Texas, between both San Antonio and Dallas. I'm very honored to be here, and I look forward to our conversation.
Okay, next we have John. He's from Stanford University, a candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts in Human Biology, African Diaspora Studies. There we go.
Hello, my name is John Okhiulu. I use he, him, or they, them pronouns. From Dallas, Texas. I'm a rising senior at Stanford University, studying African-American studies and also human biology and pre-med, interested in the intersections of health and law and criminal justice. So ask me anything, very delighted to be here. I'm ready to share any wisdom I can share.
Next, we have Ribka. She goes to NYU as well, Abu Dhabi, and she is a candidate of the degree of Bachelor of Arts in Economics. There you go.
Hi, everyone. I am Ribka Tewelde, and I reside in Virginia currently. I am a rising sophomore at NYU Abu Dhabi. I am majoring in economics and planning to minor in poli-sci, hopefully. I'm thinking about perhaps pursuing a job that's in the tourism industry. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, next up, as we know, Collins. He's going for the degree of Bachelor of Arts in Neuroscience and Public Health. Your mother freaking loves you. You're doing the best. And thank you for everything that you've done. Also for your mother, just helping her throughout everything. She loves you. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Kelsey. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Collins Mokua. As you mentioned, I am a rising senior at Columbia University studying neuroscience, the pre-medical track with a concentration in public health. I am born and raised, I was born and raised in Kenya, and I currently live in Texas. We're also very excited to be here. It's always been a passion of mine to share about my experience and my educational journey to inspire, hopefully others to aspire for greatness. So very glad to be here and to share with everyone.
Oh, you're showing. Is it me? Okay. Okay, so next up, of course, Coach Deuce, speaker, coach, author, trainer. He's a full-time lecturer at Buffalo State College School of Education. So we're looking forward to everything that you have to say. Thank you for being here, and thank you for letting me be a small part of this wonderful organization. Thank you.
Well, welcome everybody. Nyandusi Nyachae, also known as Deuce or Coach Deuce. I'm from Buffalo, New York. Originally born and raised in Kenya. I did come as an international student, but God had a plan for me to stay here. And, you know, I'm just excited to be here and to serve you. A lot of times I'm really big on looking at, you know, when we look at, you know, teaching and with students, I look at us as co-collaborators. So it's not always about the professor being up here and the students being down here. It's about partnering together. So even today, I'm just excited to be here to serve you. And it's a privilege to just see all these amazing individuals, amazing panelists, and all of you. So I won't take all the energy right now, but I will tell you this: I'm excited. And I will bring the energy when we come through the facilitation and panel session.
Go ahead.
Oh, is it me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I apologize, y'all. I thought you was gonna finish. I'm sorry, it's my fault. So guys, I'm really excited. Before we continue, I think it would be honorable, first of all, if you guys know how to do the caption or the emoji of a hand clap, let's just give Miss Sophie Onchonga and Mr. Onchonga just a hand clap. If you guys know how to do it with your hand clap, let's give them a hand clap. Let me just say this: they came to the United States for a better life for themselves and their children. And a lot of times, people get caught up in, they move from survival to success, they achieve all these things, and then they fail to move to that next level, which is significance, which means as you've reached to the mountaintop, you go back down and you bring others alongside of you. And that is what really SustainHope is about, understanding that God has a unique purpose to help as we better ourselves, to help other people better themselves. And of course, Collins, let's give Collins, his brothers who are also part of help making this happen, understanding that, you know, the legacy must be continued. And it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of, you know, willingness. It takes a lot of selflessness to lead at such a young age and to realize that it's bigger than themselves. So Collins, we celebrate you, we appreciate you, we value you. And then last but not least, I want to say this, I'm excited. A lot of times when I'm in as a speaker, or when I'm in the college world where I teach, a lot of times, it's the people who are usually invited to share are the professors, the staff members, the people who, are so-called seen as being the experts. And by the way, I no longer look at life from the mindset of an expert, but a lifelong learner, a student of life, because when you look at yourself as an expert, you put a cap. So we've got an amazing group of panelists who have taken out their time, who have been willing to share their experiences. And it takes courage. It takes courage, and they have been willing to be vulnerable and share their journeys, their successes, their learning experiences, and to give of themselves. We know right now this is summer. A lot of y'all in Texas is my favorite state. Dallas is my favorite city in the whole wide world. You could be doing something else, but you're here today. So let's celebrate. Let's give them a hand clap with the emojis, and just celebrate our amazing panelists today. So we're going to start off just having a brief discussion on the last couple of months that we've experienced. All of us, if we've been in high school, if we've been in college, we have experienced a unique journey of the coronavirus pandemic that affected all of us. And for many individuals, I'm guessing it's in Texas, the same thing, or other parts of the country, high schoolers, elementary, K through 12, had to go home and learn from home. And it was a whole new learning experience. We had college students, I know personal experience, who not only had to go home, I had to learn on the fly how to teach virtually, which I'm grateful that I'd already learned about technology, but now I had to be able to flow with them. So I want to start off, this is what we're going to do. Between now and the next 10 minutes or so, we're going to talk about just life lessons in the quarantine. And then we're going to move to the high school section. If you are a college student and you are coming here to learn about the college experience, we will start, around 6:15, 6:20. We were a few minutes started a few minutes after, I'm guessing 5 o'clock in CST. So after that hour, we'll start the college section and then Q&A. So if you're a college student and some of this information we discussed with the high schoolers may not be pertinent to you, you can go and come, or you can learn so that you can help a brother or a sister or someone that you may be mentoring or may look up to you on this. So let's start with the life in quarantine. Life in quarantine. I'm just going to go to individually to each of you panelists and sharing your experiences. What did that look like? Take us back to March, I believe 15th, around there, March 10th, March 15th. And we'll start off with Ribka. We'll go to John, Tatyana, and where's everybody? And Collins. All right. So let's get started, Ribka, and just share what did that look like for you?
Yeah, of course. So we're starting March. So around mid-March, I was in college in Abu Dhabi, and that was around the time when Corona was getting quite concerning, especially for my parents. And so I went back home. And so mid-March, I was doing all online classes with tricky time zone differences. And that was quite the experience. And my professors, for the most part, were quite understanding. But some of them had trouble understanding that acclimating to this new environment was quite difficult, especially since you're surrounded by family, which I always was, but it was family who were always at home since work, and school made them quite grounded. So all my siblings and my parents were at home with me, along with classes. And so that, in a nutshell, was my experience with quarantine.
Awesome, awesome. And once I ask everybody to share, I'm gonna ask some questions that generally you guys can share with regarding that. What about John? Thank you so much, Ribka.
Yeah, thank you, Ribka. Yeah, so I mean, middle of March, we were at Stanford in the middle of our finals week or heading into finals week, when kind of the school made the decision, coronavirus is getting really bad, it's contagious, and we need to get students off campus as quick as possible. And especially for me and other students who come from a first generation low income background, school and school housing, stuff like that really provides a lot of structure and stability for students. And so there was a scramble from a lot of alumni to kind of come together and support students who had to maybe move off campus and figure out different housing situations. I was blessed with the opportunity to stay on campus. But there were students moving around all around me, and they were trying to figure out ways in which we could live on campus in a sheltered in place kind of isolated lifestyle. The food ended up getting better on campus, which was definitely a plus, because everything else, nobody around, it felt really isolated. But we got an extra week of spring break to kind of settle in and figure out what we're gonna do for the next quarter, and then spent my spring quarter, took all my classes online, made it out okay. Just finished a couple weeks back, and now we're starting summer opportunities. So it was definitely a shaky start, but after a while, I definitely got into a groove of being able to take the classes. They might not have been the most productive or might not have been the most satisfying experiences, but we do what we can in these situations for sure.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing and for leading by example and finishing strong. By the way, guys, before I forget, for all of you watching, because we want to make sure this is not just an informational session. If it was, I would not be here. This is a transformational event. So we challenge you to engage. So please comment if you have comments as we're going, things that you've heard, things that you shared. Any questions, please privately send them to myself throughout the whole event. Yeah, and just if so that as we're going, if there are any questions, you guys may get the opportunity to have them answered. Thank you, Tatyana.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think my experience was also pretty turbulent, but thankfully we've come out strong on the other side. I was studying in Spain this semester, or the past semester in the spring, and around that time, the beginning of March, the cases had started to rise, and we were initially under the impression that we would be able to stay, and then on a 2 days, they gave us 2 days, and they were like, hey, it's looking like everybody's got to go, because Trump had announced that they were shutting down the borders. And without a lot of clarity, everybody started to panic, scramble for tickets, and they needed everybody out. So flew back to the US, managed to get a flight, and did the rest of my classes online for the remainder of the semester. And similar to Ribka, I struggled with the time zone differences and being up at all these weird times, and I was taking some courses in Spanish, so it was just a bit off. Everything was just not exactly what I thought it was going to be, and it was funky to figure out my sleep schedule and family, and those things don't stop just because some things are out of cadence. But thankfully the semester academically went okay. It was a little weird not being involved as in person in extracurriculars and the things that kind of kept me grounded. That weird thing with the loss of independence from not being at school was also something to grapple with that I struggled with a bit. But thankfully everyone's healthy. The semester finished successfully, and we were able to move forward.
That is wonderful. We're so grateful that you even got back safe and able to share. Wow, thank you. These are amazing stories. Collins, so it's also interesting because I remember talking to you and you just arrived to Dallas and we were virtually talking and you were in that 14-day isolation. So that was interesting. But go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, my situation was also kind of similar to what everyone has mentioned. So I was in New York. So, as you guys know, that's kind of really where the epicenter of coronavirus, actually globally, not even just in the US, concentrated, like is where a lot of cases were really happening. And that's kind of just by virtue of the city. It's a very populated city, very dense city. So, you know, this was happening the week right before spring break. And I know this is kind of like a first world problem moment, but me and my friends, a few friends of mine we're looking forward to be going to Puerto Rico for the break, and we had our plane tickets set, Airbnb and everything was sorted out. And so, you know, few days, that last week, it was the week before spring break was beginning for us. We started seeing schools like Harvard kick out their students to go back home. And then like the weekend before we were supposed to fly out, our school like kind of sent an email. They were like, hey, we're encouraging people to go home. If you can't go home for whatever reason, you can stay. So we were like, yeah, we'll stay. And like, I was concerned about bringing the virus back home because I was just in a city that was the likelihood that I had been exposed was also very high. So that was kind of a bit of a concern, but over I think by the Sunday of the Sunday beginning of spring break, the school sent an email that you have 2 days to get out, pack your stuff and leave. And if you had already left for spring break, don't come back. And so everybody was kind of like, whoa. And so that was kind of a bit of a hectic moment. I had to pack up all my stuff in my room, get storage, and get a flight, come home. But outside of that little moment of panic and rush and adrenaline, I think the rest of the semester was kind of a bit of a learning experience. I've always known that I'm a person that needs my studies are very dependent on the environment that I'm in. So being at home and kind of like having to do classes virtually was a bit challenging. It wasn't the first time that I'd done it because I had taken a few online classes over the summer when I was in high school. But doing college, like my entire, I was taking 18 credits, doing those online was a bit of a challenge. So that was kind of the big adjustment I think everybody can agree to. But yeah, it was a successful end to the semester, and definitely a learning moment and a learning experience for me as well.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Thank you. I know we can go on and on about this, the topic of the pandemic, the quarantine, just being in those unique spots. I'm wrestling with the move to the high school section, but I just want to ask a question. This open to all of you. What are some lessons that you learned that that you believe would help? Will help you into the next semester as a college student, as a professional, perhaps even help someone who's in high school. What is something, anyone can answer this. What is something that you learned? It could be regarding, from a leadership perspective or just personal growth or self-care, anything.
I can start it off, but I recommend being as involved as possible with your previous attendances and activities, just so that you have other things to focus on, because sometimes it's really easy to get sucked into this kind of helplessness whenever you're taking a look at the situation. And you might feel as though nothing's going back to normal, or it's just really slowly getting there. But if you have other things that are on your mind, whether it's extracurriculars or a project, or perhaps hobbies, but something that you can sustain, that has kept me going. And it also provides a little bit of a structure as well.
And Ribka, when we get to the time management for high school and college, I would love to tackle that on how it's important to set that time into our everyday.
We'll dig into that.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd also like just to add, I think it's important to also remember how to just plug out. I think the social media and the news has kind of just been a wave of a lot of triggering content lately. So just kind of taking a step back for yourself and really just centering yourself in the moment. Because I feel like for me, a lot of the feeling that I've been getting the most kind of disorientation, just taking some time to be with yourself and just to think, just to kind of flush out all of the noise and just really center yourself around, okay, this is where I'm in the moment. This is what the future kind of looks like. As uncertain as it may be, what can I do to kind of prepare myself for that uncertainty? I think
that's powerful. That's powerful. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think one thing that was important for me was, or is still important for me, is figuring out how to put a sort of partition between things. So I think one thing that happened in my experience is things mesh together. So like you're probably in the same place most of the time. You're using the same device to do most of your things. You are circling through the same social media platforms that are also all condensed and meshed together. So it becomes really important to figure out where can I put a concrete division between one thing and the next when so many things are meshed in one. So even if that's saying like, okay, well, I'm going to sit on the floor while I do this. I'm going to sit on a table when I do this. I'm going to sit on the bed when I do this. And sort of getting your body into a rhythm where you can separate things so that way things can feel a little bit different from each other, I think helps just to feel a little bit more human, to feel like you're like things are as different from each other as they actually are in real life. I mean, not that we're not in real life, but that they actually are, if a pandemic weren't to be happening. So wherever you can apply partitions to things, I think can make it a little bit easier to do what you have to do.
That's awesome. That's really good. Anybody else? John, you have some insight you'd like?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the points that you all brought up like definitely resonate. I think for me, I guess like the words that rang true, that were really important for me in terms of establishing like how I was gonna like make it through that quarter, was finding my flow and realizing, especially that nothing is promised. Just the way the entire world changed in a matter of 3 days, a matter of a week. Really establishing and setting goals for myself personally, and like being really honest about myself, talking to myself about like what it is that I need from this like time, what it is that I'm able to accomplish in this time. And that goes back to Ribka's point about like how can you be committed to other responsibilities, and like communicating that to other people, like how much time you have to commit, and when you're available and stuff like that. Being ready to adjust at any given moment, I think was super important for me, and being able to like realize like I can't control everything, but I can be honest with myself about what I'm able to do and what I need from any given moment. And so like finding that flow is super important for me. And that's something that I'm definitely gonna like hold on to and really be a lot more like self-conscious and self-compassionate as like I move through the rest of my career and stuff like that.
That's powerful. You know, it's interesting as we move to the high school session, for all of you who are watching, and it's also for ourselves, professionals already in the workforce, our ability to address change and flow with change is what's going to keep us not only successful, but to keep sustaining and growing in our success. So I'm proud of all of y'all, and powerful lessons that you guys have shared for all of us to learn. All right, so we're gonna move to the next section. And this is the high school section. We have a number of topics that we are going to discuss: finding your lane, time management, practical applications, self and at-home study, mental health, financial aid, extracurricular activities, and college prep. Now, let me just say this: this is for some of you may be like, "Wow, that's a whole bunch of stuff." We're here. We're having a conversation. So, you know, a lot of these things that we're going to discuss are going to be they're going to intersect with each other. So, high school. Finding your lane. This is a good question. So, how did you find your lane in what you wanted to do with your life? You know, Ribka, if you can start, and then we'll just flow again the same way, and then we'll get into throughout the conversation. How did you find like your lane?
Well, in high school, I was super adventurous in terms of trying to find what I was into. I was also quite stubborn about sticking with one thing that I despised. And I recommend you don't do that. From like previous years when I was a lot younger, there was nothing that like really grounded me into like some people really want to be doctors or lawyers or chefs or all sorts of things, but I was never like set on anything. And so I had my parents telling me, "Oh, why don't you pursue this? Why don't you pursue whatever it is?" And in high school, they had this idea for me to be an engineer. And I was like, why not? Let's try it out. So I took the classes, and at the time, like I felt like I was like regretting it, but in hindsight, I'm glad that I took the engineering classes, the computer science classes, etc., and found that that was definitely not my lane. But I also took all sorts of other classes. We had to take economics in our school, which I found a bit more interesting. Geography, all sorts of things, and I also did extracurriculars. I found that I really, really enjoyed leadership, and I also really liked volunteering. And so I ended up kind of mixing and choosing, I suppose, dipping your toe in everything. I highly recommend that. And also, like I said earlier, don't be stubborn, and just keep pushing something that you don't think you like, or even if you're not like good at it. But again, with the options that you have with the array, go ahead and try it.
That's some good. That is definitely a good tip, I think. Yeah, I think that's really powerful, because that is a time of exploration. So
yes, it is.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. And
I think I
John,
could just
go ahead, Collins. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead. You can
Yeah,
share.
hop off just that. I think high school is definitely a time that I always emphasize as being like the prime self-exploration time, because really not a lot is binding. A lot of stuff that you do is not really binding. You find that for me, my experience was the high school I went to, they had courses that you could take as a freshman that were kind of like pre-professional routes. So there was like a pre-medical course you could take. There was a pre-engineering class you could take. And, you know, all these different kind of like STEM fields. I went to a predominantly like a STEM school, so they were like, you know, engineering, math, science. And so if your high school has those kind of courses, I definitely recommend taking one that piques your interest the most. I know, you know, it's a kind of luck of the Irish or whatever you may call it. I took the pre-med course because that's kind of been my field of interest. I knew science was my stronghold. And we did a lot of stuff. We dissected stuff. We actually got to go to UT Southwestern Medical Center and see cadavers and all that kind of thing. You kind of get immersed in the career at a very young age to kind of really see if you really enjoy some of the content that you'll be seeing later on when you start doing this stuff professionally. So I definitely recommend that. And then another thing is, like, you know, like Ribka said, like not being stiff in your interests or, you know, passions or whatever you may feel is a career, because, you know, as like also like Coach said, like, you know, high school is a time of self-exploration. So you might be finding out things about yourself that may be pointing you in a different direction. So just being willing to explore that direction.
That's powerful. Yeah, you know what? I think this is a good place to, if any of you, John, Tatyana, Ribka, if you any of y'all want to piggyback, add different thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add, like, definitely those points are very important and very key, and something that really helped me kind of see what was out there, because a big part of high school was having a lot of like a few options kind of really laid out, and like especially going to a STEM school like Collins mentioned, there's these STEM careers in front of me, but being able to talk to mentors or find mentors in different avenues and ask them about their careers, ask them what they do on the day-to-day in their careers, really kind of helped me see exactly what I wanted to maybe potentially incorporate into my future careers path. So I think the wisdom of the elders like definitely holds true, and like how you can kind of find and create that path for yourself is really knowing kind of what lies down the road from this decision now. And there's a ton of ways that those kind of mingle, and there's a ton of ways that you can shift courses all the time. But definitely the wisdom from people who are already in their careers was really helpful in trying to find what I wanted to do myself.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah, I'm completely on board with everything that was saying, and it resonates with me as well. And I think on my end, high school in general, I think, is super important for exploration. I mean, you know, you're 14, 15, like everything's so ripe. Like there's so much that you can do and enjoy. And I think removing or trying to step away from like pressure and shame or anything that can take away your ability to explore fully, it's really important to think outside of that. So one thing that I would ask myself is, like, what do I not like? Or the things that I do like, who likes it for me? And to what extent is like praise working into the reasons why I like the things that I like? So for instance, like my parents were just adamant that I needed to be an engineer. That was absolutely, there was no other route. Like that's just what needed to happen. So all of middle school, I did this thing called prep, and I would go and do all these classes in the summer and did algebra early and all this business. And then after I told them I don't like engineering, they were like, okay, so doctor time. So I went to intern. It's actually how Collins and I met. We both interned at UT Southwestern. And I was in the transplant department, and I was all Grey's Anatomy, and I was like, this is what I want to do. Until I realized, and then I took classes in high school. I took a bunch of APs in the STEM track, and I was like, this is not for me. And I was like, interesting, yes, but fulfilling, no. So what ended up happening is as all of this was happening, I was doing a lot of community work, and it always resonated with me, but I never considered the idea that that could be a career, that it had to be something I did on the side as a hobby, as volunteering, but never something that I could devote, you know, my intentional time to, or study either. So a lot of the last 2 years of my high school was figuring out, okay, well, what can I do to make a career out of changing the water we swim in? And how can I continue to work with communities, continue to work with the people I love, and learn all this stuff about communities, while not feeling like doing that means I'm going to be volunteering for the rest of my life or not be able to have a career that goes into this. So that's all to say that you can find a career in the things that you love, and to think through why you like the things that you like, and also give yourself permission to not like them if you don't like them anymore.
Wow. So I'm about to throw probably one of the toughest questions that we're going to have this evening is, and it's twofold. When you're finding your lane, there's obviously influence, which a number of you have shared, and adults, and most likely the adults who have been closest to you, i.e. your parents. And a lot of times, you know, and let me just preface that I believe everybody who is here has been given, you know, to even just be here means that your parents value you. Those of you who are watching and who are also parents here watching. So we value our parents, we value those who are investing their children beyond education. However, sometimes there is pressure, sometimes maybe because, you know, growing up in Kenya, we didn't have, up until 1963, there wasn't as much freedom to get the best education. You know, that was independence of Kenya. So, you know, their parents who grew up at a time where now we have freedom, and so it's important to go get an education, to have a stable career. And sometimes there's an interference where there's this pressure that arises of students, or students feel, young people feel that they've got to get into a certain field, or they've got to do a certain course, and the parents are well-meaning kind of, and as much as I have, like, for example, my love for my father, my dad was a single father, and so he wanted to make sure that I succeed, raising me up and make sure that I don't get off track. And he, you know, I've had conversations where, looking back with him now as an adult, he would have readjusted the conversations we had as far as the field. So how, you know, what are your thoughts on that? And maybe none of you have had that experience or that challenge. How would you encourage, and there's some young people who are watching, how would you encourage, for example, sounds silly, but video games can lead to successful careers today, right? And if you come from an African family, that would be like, doesn't, you know. So what are your thoughts on that for parents? Then the second of the twofold is, students, do you feel that it's, there's students who feel, I gotta go and pursue this major because of, you know, I'm gonna make more money, perhaps I came from a family, didn't have a lot of money, I wanna make this. Do you think it's important to pursue passion and fulfillment, or pursue, a career that will make you more money? So it's a twofold question. You can answer either or both. Anyone want to?
I can take a crack at it because that definitely resonates. I mean, like I come from a Nigerian household, so my parents from the jump are like, you know, engineer, doctor, lawyer, one of those careers, because they do make money and they're highly touted in our culture. And so, I mean, it definitely guided like the interest that the ability, the realms that I was exploring. It kind of those pressures kind of guided that. But at like day by day, year by year, opportunities are changing constantly. Like computer science wasn't something I learned about until high school. But like, look how that field has kind of like developed and evolved into something very, very possible for so many people. And very, very, I guess, fruitful in terms of like the money that you could get out of it. I would say to parents, like, and I think personally, like, I love video games, and so that was a big part of me choosing CS originally. And like, if we talk more, you realize I switched out of CS like very quickly. But video games were a big part of my exploration of that realm. And my parents, on or off, didn't really like video games. And didn't really like the time we put into those stuff. And so I would say, like, as the world kind of changes, it's kind of hard to like open up your heart or open up your mind to the realm possibility of different ways in which like we can engage with things that we love and that can actually lead to a career path. But being able to challenge some of the like logics that we have ingrained and explore kind of the ways in which those can really inform some really good life choices was something that was a tension that I had to explore with my parents, and eventually like we got there, and eventually, of course, I made different career decisions to this point, but I think that was very important for me. Yeah, I'll leave it there for now and see if someone else wants to talk.
And a lot of times too, one thing I learned about parents is also consistency. So if you're not consistent and, you know, every 2 months you're trying, there's nothing wrong with exploring, but if you haven't done, was it Ribka or Tatyana who said like, you know, the engineering where you haven't even done, it was Ribka, like 3 months, 6 months of, you haven't done some classes to even know, then, you know, yeah. Anybody else want to answer that or share their input?
Yeah. So there's this like concept called ikigai, I believe. It's a Japanese concept, and it has 4 realms, if I can remember it correctly. It's something you love doing. It's something that you get paid for. Something that the world needs. And there's one more that if anyone remembers, just say it out loud. But it's just like a combination of all of these things. And so my parents exposed me to that, and even though my parents always wanted me to like pursue a specific thing back in high school, they also really liked being well-read. And so they do their own type of research about youth, and when presented with logical arguments of how something that I excelled at or was interested in could push me further than something that they thought would be a better field of study, they would be persuaded. And so it was just a matter of like sort of laying out like the best argument. And sometimes like there's also just like you're plain miserable with what you're doing. And so that like they also want you to be happy. And like for the like parents out there, I'm sure that resonates with you all. Like as much as you want your like children to succeed, you also want them to be like joyful in what they're doing. And so it's just like all of that, all of what I just said, like at the end of it, just providing like some compelling evidence, for lack of a better word, for why something might be better down the road. Might be the key to doing what you want.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, Ribka.
No worries.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, like, you know, to the other side of the question that coach asked, you know, if you want to do something for the sake of money or for the fulfillment, I think that is a question that even in this moment can be answered. Like if you can imagine if you were doing a job that you hated, and now the pandemic hits and, you know, you're not being paid as much or the situations have shifted, it becomes really hard to do your job when things get difficult. But if it's something that you're passionate about, then it doesn't feel like a job. You know, this has, you know, been said a million times, but it's very true, especially when it comes to fields of study, because like people have mentioned, if you're not a math person, there's just no way you're going to be successful in a math career, because that's all you're going to be doing is math. And if you don't enjoy it, and if you don't enjoy it, it's just not going to be fun. You're going to be miserable. So I think, and especially in the early stages, like in high school and younger years, I think that's where I really love if parents would just like expose your children to as much as possible, because the more exposure they have, the more they find out things that they do like and things that they don't like. Because if you just have a small realm of exposure where like you've contained them in this box of, okay, they're just engineering from birth and it's just engineering, and they get to high school, worse even in college, and then they are independent and they are being exposed to all these other things, and they're like, I don't really like this a lot, then you have wasted a lot of years which they could have been developing in those things earlier. So, you know, things like, you know, professional musicians and stuff, they really start at a very young age. And so the earlier on they can find identify the passions of your child and really support them fully in those passions, whatever they may be, would really, I would really encourage that, as far as, because that at the end of the day, that is what, even if, you know, once they make it a career. And in the world today, you know, anything can really be a career, like you said. Like there's people making millions of dollars playing this new game, Fortnite. I'm young, but I still don't know how to play it. You know, that just tells you how fast the world is changing. And there's jobs that are going to be there that are not there today. 10, 15 years ago, you know, computer science, like John mentioned, wasn't really a thing that was bringing in that money. But now, straight out of college, you can be making six figures. You know, as a first, you know, just straight out of college, I have friends that are graduating, going into Amazon and stuff like that. So allowing yourself the flexibility. And I think I also wanted to underline some of the anxiety that I think, from my kind of point of view, I feel like parents may be feeling, is that kind of, you're looking for something that is secure, something that people have, you know, that a path that is clear, because you want safety for your child. And I understand that anxiety and I understand that fear. Things like medicine and engineering and lawyerhood, like there's a clear path. You go to undergrad, you go to law school, you get a lawyer or med school. There's a clear path to that safe job, and it's a job that is going to be existing for a while. People are not going to stop getting sick. People are not going to stop suing. So that kind of security can be a motivation, but I would encourage you to kind of, you know, especially with all the hard work that you guys have all done to be able to be here even today, to be, you know, supporting your children to get exposed to this information, show that you are willing to let them out there and expose them to different things. So yes, encourage kind of to let their wings fly and kind of try and restrain that fear from being a limiting factor.
That's powerful. You said that, Collins. You know, it's. I remember we were out to lunch the first time I met you. You know, and then a couple of days later, and myself, I think one or two college students and some high schoolers. We were all, you know, there having brunch, and, you know, I think we had a discussion, and you kind of, at least for me, you kind of like stopped me at my tracks, because it was so powerful what you said. And this is, you know, coming from someone who, you are in a science major, right? And to be truthful, like I never met someone who was in a science major who actually enjoyed it, because I thought people become doctors, just want to be doctors because they get that security. But you talked to us all about fulfillment and about the importance of doing what you love, and that it's not always, it's beyond the money, and that you're making an impact. And so that's really powerful that you said that. And let me just share this before we get to the next question. Like, we also have to be careful not to judge or beat down what people choose, high schoolers or college students and parents, because there's always this debate of, you know, the fact that you went to college and did this, or you didn't go to college, or you went to college and got a PhD, that you're good or bad. Like, I think, again, it's back down to, do you know yourself? What does God put in you? What is your purpose? And how you know, make a difference. And I believe truthfully that when you do what you love, and it may not be instant, sometimes you may not make a lot of money, but but I believe that money will follow you, that you need to live your life. I strongly, you'll attract what you need to accomplish, what you need to accomplish. That's why we're here on earth. So let me ask this next question. I know we're flowing, we're moving with time. Time management. That's the $1 million question, $1 million comment. What are some tips, some advice that you can give high schoolers on time management that can save their lives for the rest of their lives? Like some $1 million tips that you can give.
I can start, and I'll just throw in a little thing from the last question really quickly. I just wanted to say that destigmatizing the learning curve is really important. That's that when you're trying to figure out what you want to do, that process of not being sure is very sensitive and precious. And so whatever family members can do to make sure that young people feel guarded, safe, like they can be vulnerable and exploring things is super important. And I was going to say, like, I remember one of the biggest things that I would ask myself is, how do I tell my parents I'm not sure? They'll crucify me. How do I tell my parents that I don't know? So I would come up with a cloud idea. I'm going to be an engineer. Don't worry about it. Just have faith that that's what I'm going to do. And they'll be like, okay, well, my kid's smart. My kid's dedicated. That's what she's going to do. And then I would say, I don't want to be an engineer anymore. I'm going to be a doctor. And as long as they feel secure that, she's aiming for that, that's cool. But when I told them, well, actually, I'm considering policy now. Well, then they were like, okay, that's going to be like a kumbaya kind of field. Like, what are you going to do with that? We don't know what that means. All of that. Well, I'm giving them these keywords, but little do they know, I wasn't certain. I wasn't certain the whole time, but I had so much fear of letting them know that I wasn't certain that I held that within myself. So I think just a message to parents, siblings, especially for younger kids, really protect them as they're searching, and guard them and make sure that they feel secure in figuring themselves out. So that was what I had on that. On time management, I don't want to pretend like I have my time management together, because I don't. But I do have a few things that have helped me a lot recently. And so one thing was figuring out my relationship between stress and time, which I realized was substantially, like, the way that I used my time and the way that I felt stressed in the day was very much lined up, right? So at least when it came to planning out my day, I had to figure out, like, what are the things that I need to do to see what I have to finish in a day, and what are the things I can have a little bit of leniency and mercy on, right? So I must sleep, I must eat. There will be some level of academic performance things that I need to do in the day. I must spend some time with my family. So lining up, like, what is a priority, and to what extent can I crisscross some things, right? So, like, I told myself that I can't work and eat at the same time. For me, eating is precious. So when I'm eating something, I put everything else away. So that was something I wasn't willing to sacrifice, right? Or if I'm with my family, I try to give them my undivided attention. So that's time that I put away. But if I do have some phone calls or something and I'm driving home from school, well, I'll cross those over, right? Or if I need some self-care time, I need to listen to a podcast, I'll do that when I'm driving home from school. So I guess asking the question of how can you cross things so that way you can do two things at the same time, but then also what are the things you absolutely won't sacrifice when it comes to your time? And the underlying question of all of those is, how do you associate stress with your time, and what can you do to alleviate stress and use your time better?
Yeah, I really wish I could have a microphone and turn you drop it, because that was powerful. Wow.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, I think writing things down comes into key. I've always kind of been like I don't take notes kind of person, just because, I don't know, I like taking things down, taking things in the first time, or just kind of using resources that are already there. But like when it comes to scheduling, I just, once I got to college, I realized, like, yeah, you have to have a planner. You have to have some way where you write things down. And now you have a lot of technology. Like, I use Google Calendar for everything. Like, you look at my Google Calendar, it's red, orange, green, all over the place. Because it helps you can schedule things, you can get reminders. I'm somebody that forgets a lot. So you set a time, remind me to do this, remind me to do that. And for events that, especially, you know, phone calls, meetings, checking in on friends, birthdays, all that kind of stuff, you can set that on the calendar. So I think that helps kind of take away the stress in your head of trying to keep everything in your head, like, oh, what am I supposed to do? Like, what am I forgetting? If you know that whenever, the moment you get an assignment, the moment you get an action item, writing it down, scheduling it for some time, and just, you know, knowing that, okay, that's been addressed, and there's a portion where that's going to be getting addressed. And with that, once you have scheduled something for a certain time, a certain block of time, not letting it seep into other things. So for example, like, it can be very easy to be like, oh, I'm going to study for this exam on Monday from 2 to 3. But then during your relaxing time on Sunday, all you're thinking about is that exam, like you're being stressed. Like that takes away from, you know, your personal time and your self-care time, and makes you even more anxious and more fatigued, and like kind of less confident whenever it comes time to study. So making sure that you are allotting time for things, and also in your mental, allowing yourself to not worry about them when it's not time to worry about them. So, you know, Monday from 2 to 3, that's when I'm going to worry about this exam. On other times, you know, that's none of my business, you know, like kind of allowing yourself to do other things, and to be to be a person, like, you know, to be with your family, to be with friends, and to just be with yourself.
That's good.
That's super important. I would just, Collins, that was beautiful. I would just add that, like, you mentioned it, self-care time, and that was something that for me was super important. Was in your day, like, you see 24 hours, but you can't be busy and productive those entire 24 hours. You really, like, I have friends in college who will pencil, or who will write it in the Google Calendar, this is when I'm sleeping. And that's like the literal, like, epitome of, like, of penciling out your time and penciling out your self-care time, but really, like, making sure that you leave space to be doing nothing, or to be thinking about nothing, or leave space for, again, like the flexibility, the moments that you can't expect. Like, you might just need a nap for a couple hours a day, but if you've got things scheduled from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., like, when is that nap gonna be in there? And so I think for me, it was a lot of that was learning that I can't be, and I shouldn't be 100% go every hour of the day. I have points in my college career, my Google Calendar was block after block after block, overlapping blocks, and figuring out I'm gonna do two things at the same time. But I realized, like, that space with nothing labeled on it is very important too, in terms of how I'm able to be refuel and recharge, and be able to give my 100% to the other things that I'm doing.
You know, it's funny you said that, John, because one of the things I teach my students a lot is scheduling their sleep time. And I remember one student who was an A student, but they were overwhelmed and it started to affect them. And I said, schedule your sleep time in. And it doesn't matter how many hours you sleep, but it's allocated. You know, it's like with money. You tell your money where to go, or else your money's going to tell you where to go, you know? And so it's so powerful that you said that. And that's also unlearning things, and also a paradigm shift versus what we've learned in society of go, especially in African culture, go, 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 go. You know, that's what gives you a sense of pride. So
yeah, it's got to be non-negotiable. You can't negotiate that time.
Also, to make it a little more high school relevant, I think, because, you know, in high school, and this is something I hated about high school, you wake up really early and you come home really late. So, like, you know, in that block of time, you know, there is really no time for napping, because you're in school the whole time, and teachers hate when you nap. And you wake up really early, so it's almost inevitable that you get tired in the middle of the day. And if you're doing extracurriculars, that means that you're getting home even later. So I think with that, like, for me, it came to a time where it was, you just have to really be on top of your assignments, because I think that's really what eats out the time at home, is the homework part. Making sure that, you know, if you get some moments in between classes and school, lunch, you know, whatever you are able to sacrifice to kind of reduce the workload, and always being on top of your work. Because if you let it pile up, then, you know, those are hours you're gonna have to make up later if you want to stay on top of your grades or whatever. So making sure that you're, you know, steady with your studying, you know, with your readings. I think readings is something that sneak up on you always, because you're like, yeah, I'll just read later, but they pile up. And so making sure that you're on top of your assignments, like I said, writing things down from jump, the day that you get the assignment, okay, this is a paper, it's due next week, it's this many pages, I can start working on the outline today, mapping it out so that it makes things easier and allows you time at home, so you can get the necessary hours of sleep, so that you're not groggy and, you know, that kind of thing. And sacrificing rest.
One more thing.
So just before we continue, I'll give just one the last few statements on this point, and then we're going to flow into the last topic, which is college prep, but we'll mix it in with you know, self-study, home study for high schoolers, and then we'll move on to the questions for the high school. So yeah, go ahead, Tatyana.
I was just gonna say, if you were to ask anybody, like, this is my favorite word of the century, accountability partners, like having another person who, even if they're not doing that particular task with you, who is willing to hold you accountable for something, and in exchange you can hold them accountable for something that they express is important to them to do. So in high school, you know, if even if it's for things that are not academic, right? Like, you can have accountability partners for self-care. If somebody holds you accountable to, like, wash your hair when you're supposed to wash your hair, then cool, you have a person who can keep you in check with yourself. So I think accountability partners for time management is really, really wonderful. I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's good.
I want to add one point as well. Something I struggled with is I have like these huge to-do lists, and yeah, it might be summer and there might be less things to do. I actually have a class, but like afterwards, it's still probably going to be really long, just because there's going to be things that I want to update LinkedIn, etc. And there's just like the one thing that you need to do is that you need to be able to prioritize based on deadlines. Like deadlines for me, like as much as you might like be scared for any of them, like any upcoming deadlines, it keeps you in check. And so like if you have a to-do list that's getting super overwhelming, I would recommend like setting like due June 23rd, due like in August, and so that way you're like allotting like the right amount of time for any specific task.
That's good. That's good. High schoolers, if you're listening to this, I hope you're taking notes, because I promise you, these college students are giving you nuggets, and if you guys can apply it, even those of you who are not in high school, if you got to grab a hold of these panelists, figure it out how you can get, you know, whether it's on the chat board, it will save you a lifetime, because life only gets more complex. But if you have systems, you know, you'll move smooth. And that's why these panelists have been able to have success. I mean, yes, they're not perfect, but success is also not accidental. It's intentional, just like failure is. So let's get briefly for 5 minutes talk about college prep, and you can add self-study to points on self-study / the entry exams, SATs, all of that. What are some, I guess, some very valuable tips that you would give high schoolers right now, or even let's I believe in starting early. So I see that we've got some young folk well under high school age. What, you know, and I hope that they, you know, yeah, what can you share with them on prepping even from now? Because I think sometimes people think, oh, college prep is just when it's in my senior year and I'm starting to look at school. So what are some tips you would give, even like how, if you were to do it back again?
People correlate the standardized testing with money and with like taking all these expensive courses in order to prepare yourself, and like that's not really the case. There were a lot of courses that were offered in my area, and all over the US and globally as well, where like people would be willing to tutor either for free or at a reduced cost. And I think the key thing is to repeat these tests. Like it's just a matter of practice and getting as much exposure. And it's also not an intelligence test either. And so, which is why I stress on like practicing. Like you don't need to be like, you don't need to be like a genius to like ace these. And so So my 2 points is try to find ways to either not pay for these prep courses or get a reduced cost, and sorry, I forgot my second point. To practice, because again, it's not an intelligence test.
And would you advise them to start even from
Yeah.
elementary, middle school? Are there some things like, even for example, the words you got to learn? And...
Words. I think a freshman year of high school was
Yeah.
sophomore year. That was kind of the ballpark.
Okay.
Because you'll have other tests as you go along, but I think definitely, I mean, starting early in terms of like figuring out, or this was the biggest point for me, was recognizing that your college application is, somebody framed it to me as a pie, and you have these different slices of your pie that kind of contribute to who you are as an applicant. And definitely, if I would have started earlier thinking about like my pie, I would have figured out, okay, like what am I doing with extracurriculars? Like what am I committed to for 4 years? Also, like, what does my GPA look like now, and how can I get it to the point I want it to be by the time I graduate? Starting SAT prep earlier, because all those different slices kind of contribute to who you are as an applicant. And definitely on Ribka's point, like Khan Academy for me was, Khan Academy is totally free,
yes.
But Khan Academy was like my major key for like figuring out exactly where I was starting at in terms of like the SAT. And where I needed to get, and they really customized the course to fit what you're weakest at, and then like give you all this time to drill and practice tests. It's all there. So that for that particular test was my most precious resource, and it was totally free. So yeah, just reiterate that point. Like it's not about how much money you spend on your college application process or your tests and things like that, but it's really like work smarter, not like harder in terms of like money and resources and stuff like that.
Alan, Tatyana.
Yeah, I think I agree with what's been said. I think, yeah, for sure, the thing with college applications is it's about starting early, because from the moment you hit ground freshman year to the moment that you will be applying, they're going to be looking at what you have done with all that time. So it's a bit intimidating, obviously, because as a freshman you're still very young, you're still very getting to learn about yourself. But I think the thing that is most important, I think, for freshmen more so than anything else, is just to really make sure that your grades are solid. Having a solid start will make the rest of your high school career a lot easier, because one thing about GPA, it's very, very, very easy to drop that. To drop it will drop in a second, but picking it back up, you will have to haul like there's no tomorrow. So making sure that you have a high start, as high as possible, making sure that you're maintaining, so that if there is going to be, some hard classes, maybe it's an AP class, maybe it's whatever it may be, it's not hitting you while you're at the bottom. You have some safety cushion, and you can shoulder some impact, and you can even take some risk as far as challenging yourself with courses. And then another thing I'll say is really like starting early, maybe on sophomore year, towards the end of sophomore year, to trying to start to map out the kind of, not even the type, the names of school that you would want to go to, and doing some research on them. So looking up, what kind of standardized tests do they take? Is it ACT or SAT? Do they require extra subject tests? Do they require or recommend? If they say recommend, just technically required, because if you don't do it, somebody else will, and you want to give yourself as much of a leg up as possible. And yeah, like I said, doing extracurriculars, not because you think it will look good, because there's no university that's looking for one, like, it's not like, oh, you have to be in student council to get into Stanford. It's about doing an extracurricular that you are passionate about. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be at your school. You could be at a community center. It could be at your church. But as long as you show consistency, and there's some deliverables, like you can describe your impact, like I was able to work this many hours and do this X, Y, and Z and learn X, Y, and Z from it. As long as it's an experience that is worthwhile to you, and you can describe that, I think those are the most meaningful ones. And you can show longevity and kind of dedication to a cause with kind of a vision in mind. So for example, if it's a community center, the vision of providing for the community, be it by food or whatever, time and mentorship with kids and stuff, whatever it may be that is passionate to you. But being able to engage in that beyond the classroom is a big thing, even pre-professionally as well. Doing internships, like, Tia mentioned, myself and her, we were at UT Southwestern doing those kind of things, exploring during the summer, exploring those passions, getting a job, getting a shadowing thing, you know, kind of just being resourceful with your time, I think is a big thing as well.
And one of the things that's so powerful to it, you know, we talked about picking what brings you fulfillment. Tatyana brought about policy being something that's important to her. When you look at education, I'm saying this as an educator in the higher education institution, there are some things that are not so good about education, like SATs, and they discriminate in various forms. But we're not going to make changes, and we're not going to help better the next generation if we don't get the current education now to have that voice to speak up and change. And so everything is connected. So I really appreciate what you guys all said. You know, you need to go into a Stanford so that you can use that voice from being a Stanford former Stanford student to speak into environments that perhaps, and then change situations. So thank you. Tatyana, you want to share what you had a thought?
Yeah, I'm completely on board with what everybody else has said so far, and I think that the only thing that I would add is that in my process for college applications, I can't stress enough how important the people that I met along the way were. So people who had some sort of stake in an application process who could guide me through. So for example, when I was a freshman and a sophomore, just kind of growing up, my school would have these these tables out in the front of our school where college reps would just come and sit. And you know, as a freshman, I didn't really need anything from them because I wasn't really thinking about them. But it did give me a chance to go and say hello if nobody was at the table. And I could kind of talk about the things that I wasn't sure about, or ask them, like, you know, what do you do, and what is your school about? And so I would collect their business cards, and I did that from freshman year all the way through my senior year. And what I noticed was eventually I had developed a relationship with them because they would come back every year. So some of them, by the time they came back my senior year, I mean, we'd been talking for 3 or 4 years. And this is actually how I ended up with my relationship with one of these people, was the reason why I'm at NYU Abu Dhabi today. So that process of collecting and developing a relationship with people to where they knew me, and they knew how I was changing every year. And I think when I ended up applying to schools, what worked in my favor was that they already knew who I was, and my application was just kind of like a written explanation of the things that I was doing that they may not have heard, but you know, they knew my character, they knew the work I was in, my values, and all of that. So I would say if you have the chance to be physically present with someone, and also if that's your thing, right? Like I'm a really social person, so it didn't bother me to go and talk to them, or you know, have lunch with them or whatever. But if you can develop that in-person connection with them, get into the habit of following up by email, and developing those relationships, come senior year, it was just like it paid off in so many incredible ways, and I would definitely recommend it.
And guys, a great way that I do presentations on this, you're really building your brand. And basically your brand for those who are young is like, how do you want people to know you? What are people going to say about you? So from your excellence in high school to going into college, and truthfully, it's not just what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. There are people already talking about these panelists in a great way, because of, I mean, even just being on this panel is positioning you more than some students who would have said, you know, I don't need that. I've got a 4.0, I don't need that. But sometimes having a 4.0 and not knowing how to be a leader can work against you, because companies like Apple don't care that you had a 4.0. Are you solving problems in the world? So so let's give about 2 minutes for questions. Collins and Kelsey, is it okay after we finish high school questions to take like a 5-minute break and then go right into, okay, the college prep? So for the attendance, are there any questions that you have for the panelists right now? Any questions? Just shoot them on the everyone section in the chat. And you can try to be as specific as possible.
Are there any questions from the pre-questions, the ones that I sent before?
Yes, yes. So let me ask these questions that someone asked. So the questions were, and this is open to anyone, what extracurricular activities can I do to gain interest in the health field and to boost?
I think I could hit that one. The pre-medical or pre-health. So that was kind of my thing, and like I mentioned from freshman year, I was kind of curious about it, and ended up being what I'm passionate about. If you are in school, and I don't know if they still do this, I really hope they do. In the Dallas or DISD, Dallas School District, the mayor has an internship program. You can Google Dallas Mayor Internship Program, and that one is one good way. It's not even actually pre-health by only. It's all like any industry that has an office in Dallas is a good chance that there will be included in this program. Basically, it's a program where you kind of go through the whole process of getting a job. So you will go to a kind of a job fair with your resume and your professional clothing. You will do quick little 2, 3, 5-minute interviews, drop off your resume, and then you'll get offers back for a summer internship. Usually after your sophomore year or after your junior year, that summer between those 2 years. And so that's the Dallas Mayor's Internship Program. And there's a lot of similar other programs. If you're interested in medicine, like looking at your local hospital, looking for their volunteer department. If there's an email or contact, just either calling or emailing, be like, hey, I'm a high school student. I'm interested in medicine. I saw about this opportunity on your website, or do you have any opportunities for high school students to volunteer, to shadow, to work? And oftentimes, you'll get, oh, hey, we accept volunteers, and you can just something as small as, helping with patients, like wheel patients between rooms or bring patients food. That's kind of patient care. If you can get yourself in a hospital setting, if you can get yourself in a doctor's office setting, even your doctor, like the doctor that takes care of you, your personal doctor, you'd be like, hey doc, like, can I shadow you for a day, a week, a month? Those experiences go to show that you're exploring your interest, and that applies to all fields, not just medicine.
That's good. We have some more questions. Some questions have been answered, like what were some of the major changes you had to make for better, in order for better time management? So we won't answer that. How did you manage daily and spiritual life? I know it seems like we answered those questions, but for any of you who are spiritual, I know we have some people who are spiritual. So how did you manage that, like time for church, or anyone want to answer that?
I can take a crack at that. Balancing it was quite difficult, just because for me, like a big part of life in high school was always going to church. I was a part of that church ever since I was 10, I believe. And like after we immigrated here from Eritrea, it was like we went straight to church, and it was like a really nice community for us. But going to Abu Dhabi, even though there was a church, I'm Orthodox, that was like always there. It was on Fridays, since that's like the day of prayer, and adjusting to that was a little difficult. And I also didn't know anyone there. But I think like repetition would have helped. I wasn't able to go as much as I wanted to. But I remember the first time I went, like I didn't really know anyone there. I prayed and like got out. But like the second and third time, there were people that I was connected through like through some of my father's friends that ended up living there. And they were like, oh, there's a church like WhatsApp group. And so I think it's a matter of just like bridging that, and like at the end of the day, like it's up to you to like maintain that. And like as difficult as it gets, like faith helps you get through it.
That's good. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question about middle schoolers. What tips would you give middle schoolers? And let me just say this, like, I know we always focus on high school for college students. I don't know about y'all, but I'll have kids here, but I'm gonna be, whether it's mindset wise or certain things like reading, like my kids are gonna be thinking about college or higher education, whatever path, whether it's a trade, whatever, long before they go into high school, because you're programming them for success. So what are some tips you would give for a middle schooler on preparing for high school and college?
I would reach out to,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, like Coach mentioned, like it's a mindset thing. So I think starting early to kind of build habits, to build study habits, to build your to identify your hobbies, to identify your passions, doing the research and the work to really get to know yourself and to really understand where you want to go as early as possible is important. So I encourage you to use your time, especially and your resources, if you have internet access, if you have a personal computer, to just start exploring things, start like learning, instead of if gaming is your thing, like looking more so into the career of gaming, not just playing for the sake of pleasure, but also looking into like if it's, do I want to make games, do I want to be in the business part of the industry, the creative part of the industry, starting to ask probing questions early, I think is important. But also a little bit more practical, I think, is especially for the 8th graders, because that you're like at the arch of going into high school, trying to if you are able, if you're in a school that has this option, to try and take the more challenging courses as much as you can handle. And this is where coming, speaking with your counselor, speaking with your parents, and kind of really doing that self-reflection to kind of start pushing your limits, because that will help you understand the amount of the course load that you can handle once you get to high school. And because like I mentioned, high school, they start counting from the day one. When you get to high school, your record as far as grades are concerned is maintained throughout. So kind of starting to build those habits a little early, starting to test your limits to see how much to starting to build your even your attention span, starting to read more, because I can tell you right now, it doesn't matter what industry you go into, reading is fundamental. It doesn't matter if you're doing gaming, it doesn't matter if it's music, you just have to read. And the higher you go, the more reading you get. And even just being able to read for fun is a good thing. So starting to build those habits and build those skills early is definitely a major key.
Colin, I remember telling a young man in high school, said, I don't want to go to college or whatever, and he wants to be a rapper. I said, great. He was a good rapper. I said, you still need to learn how to read contracts. You still need to learn how to run a business effectively, or else you'll be played, for lack of a better term. Awesome. There is a question for, Lynn Onwanga said, BASE is a good program for middle schoolers to find different high schools and colleges. I don't know much about BASE. If any of you are aware of it, maybe you can touch on that.
But I'm assuming that it's something similar to College Bound.
Yep.
And it's one of those kind of high school prep, college prep sort of groups that like tailors students to have more awareness about about what high school will entail, and looking at like things that colleges are looking for like ahead of time, whether that's GPA, whether that's extracurriculars. I also wanted to add earlier, having a mentor, I think,
What is a
is really
mentor?
important. Sorry?
What is a mentor? I know he brought
A
up,
mentor. Yes.
what does it look like, or even finding one?
A mentor. So it's essentially someone, it can be someone who's older, it typically is, but it's someone who has the experiences that you want to draw from. And they're there to guide you along the way. And so, like, finding a mentor, it might even be a counselor. It might be an older kid that you look up to. When I was in middle school, I remember, especially 8th grade, I was asking high schoolers like a billion questions. I was like, so once I'm there, like, what do I have to do? What's going on? Like, give me all the details. Let's go. I was really excited and energetic at the time. Still am. But they really helped me like get to where I wanted to. Plus they also like went through everything. That's why like the panelists are here today, to give you guys like a morsel of our experience and like share it with you guys, because we've already gone through it. So like if we've gone through all the trial and error, like you guys don't have to fail, we got you, right? And so having a mentor for any stage of life, honestly, is the best. And they can answer all of your questions, even like give you some sort of support that doesn't have to be academic. It can just be a helping hand, honestly. Even if you send them a text, or just come to them like in an emotional state, they can help you like come back.
And can I just, as we finalize this high school portion, can I just, I want to hone in on this. These panelists are here, and this is an opportunity not just to learn with them, but to connect with them. And all of them are going to be extremely successful. And the fact that they connected with you now, and you never know the fields that they're going to get into, and having opportunities to help you guys on the journey. Take advantage of that. Do not be shy of reaching. I'm guessing all of you are open to even getting to know them on a personal basis. Take advantage of this time right now. If you got to reach out to ask for more questions, if you've got to reach out and just connect and have someone you can connect with on every so often to ask them, please do that. One thing that I regret is I thought I was too whatever for school. I was too good for school, and there were people who wanted to help me, and I only learned later in graduate school the value of that. So young people, please take advantage of that. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. There are some questions that were asked Collins prior to this, but they can flow into the college section. So we'll take a 5-minute break. And so at 6:35, we are going to continue on more specifically to the college section. Please, if you can, for those of you that are tight on time, please stay for a little bit longer. I promise you'll get your time's worth. All righty.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. We're going to continue on. Oh, are all the panelists back on?
Give me a second to turn
Okay, we'll just wait for Tatyana.
Tatyana. Go ahead as Tia comes back.
Is Tatyana you on, or is it Oh, I didn't know if you. Okay, excellent. All right, guys. So thank you all for choosing to continue on. We have, I'm guessing, 100%, if not close to 100% of everybody who was on earlier. Again, it's a privilege to be here hosting, and again, we've had some great key, valuable, evergreen points by evergreen, meaning these are things that you can take, and no matter how old you are right now, going into high school and college, you can take and apply into your life, and even just some life skills. So as we go into college, the first question that I'm going to ask is in relation to the first question asked for high school, which is choosing your lane. But now let's talk about choosing your field of study or your major, because you can say, I want to be a doctor. So what do you need? What major do you need, or field of study do you need so that you can be a doctor or a gamer? So anyone want to respond to that? How do you pick your field of study or your major? And if anyone can explain what a major is, that would also be awesome.
I can start.
Okay, John, go ahead.
Go me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'll start, and then I think a major for me, when I came in, major translated directly to career. Like that, it was very linear, like vision of what you study. You study what you're going to practice in for the rest of your life. But I mean, over time, I think a lot of mentors and a lot of guidances, books that I read kind of break that down, and they really tell you, like, if you want to be a doctor, there's 1,000,001 paths that get you towards being a doctor. With the caveat of there's a few like tangible things that you do need to get out of your undergrad, for instance, that'll contribute to applying to med school and being able to apply and then being able to like be successful in med school.
Like biology, which
exactly, like biology, chemistry, math, like those are things you won't be able to really escape. But outside of that, like your major is really going to be what you're spending the most part of your time in college thinking about and studying and writing about. And it's a lot easier. It's not easier is not the right word for it, but you have a lot better time in college when you're studying something that you're passionate about and that really fulfills you and like engages you. You want to ask more questions. You really want to like dive deeper and be inquisitive. And it doesn't always have to directly translate to what you want to do in the next step. So I think when we're talking about mentors, like they really help guide you to determine what you need from your undergrad and what like where you have space to kind of pursue what you want to. So like, for instance, I'm studying like diaspora studies, Black studies, and that's something that for me really gives me the foundation into kind of the folks that I want to work with and the communities that I want to be able to advocate for in my medicine practice and in my practice in law. But it's not really something that you say you study Black studies so you can practice Black studies. But once you kind of realize like your major is really a complement to your careers rather than the say out and all be all to what you can do in your career, I think you have a lot better time. And so if I would have learned that earlier, I might have had my GPA might be better for lack of a better story. Like long story short, if I didn't like come in practicing, for instance, CS, thinking that had to be my career, I would have had a higher GPA. But you do find that lane eventually. I think again, like not treating your career as like a linear major to job is a really important with all the mentorship that you have around you.
What do you mean by linear? Just for some of the young folk.
Just A to B, straight line. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I think I resonate with that as well. I think we also like.
We can't hear you. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Now
it's just a little quiet.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Not sure. Let's see. Can you see me now?
Did the earphones die?
I don't know.
If you just put the volume a little bit louder.
Is this better?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. So yeah, I was saying, what was I saying? Oh yeah, major. There's always this kind of going in like, pre-med, medical school, kind of the idea of what you need to do. Like John mentioned, a major is essentially by definition is like what you get a degree in. So like, when you go to graduation, it goes like, oh, like so-and-so got a bachelor's of arts or science in biochemistry, engineering, sociology, history. It's like your main focus of study. So you're going to take courses, or there are set courses that are in that description of a field of study. So most universities, they'll have their defined list of classes that you will take. So, if you want to do something like engineering, so you have to take calculus 1, 2, 3, mechanics, thermodynamics, you'll get to kind of have a list of basically essentially things you have to complete to get that degree. So, that's what it is. And so, like John mentioned, a lot of times people think that it's a straight line between what you want to major in and what you want to work in. And I think more so now, more than ever, I think that's kind of a notion that's being like kind of dissolved, because a lot of industries are also becoming more interdisciplinary. So like, to be a lawyer, you still need to know a little bit of psychology, a little bit of sociology. To be a doctor, you still need to know a little bit of public health, a little bit of, the population studies and stuff like that. So you need to be more of a diverse candidate. So what John mentioned with GPA being better and your grades being better, if you are in a major that you are passionate about, that you are confident in, that is you are excited to learn about, courses that are in that, the courses that you will have to take are going to be, they're not going to be easier, but they're going to be more enjoyable to you. They'll be more fulfilling. So you will feel like the content that you are gaining, you are enjoying the material, and that you are, excited to learn more. You're looking forward to, you wanna learn more, you wanna read more about it, you wanna write more about it, you have opinions about it, et cetera, et cetera.
Some great points. That's really good.
Our school likes to map out these 4-year plans. And if you get on top of that early, it'll save you so much stress. I swear to you. And like the second you start putting down, okay, so these are the prerequisites, which are just classes that you need to get out of the way before going into more advanced classes in your major. The second you get those out of the way, and then you start taking those advanced classes, it'll figure itself out. But again, you have to take the effort in the beginning to, you can do it on your own, or you could do it with, again, an upperclassman who is in the same major as you. So I'm an econ major, and I sat down with another one, with another econ major to kind of map out where I was going with it. I also talked to my mentor for a little bit. If you find that helpful, that's great as well. And also you need to realize that with your major, there's probably lots of avenues that you can go in terms of a career. So whether, for my specific major, economics, whether you want to do consulting, you could even go to marketing, there's accounting, there's so many things that you could do. So again, don't limit yourself. I'm pretty sure it was John that said, don't do the whole linear situation. And also I want to drive home what Collins said about the interdisciplinary kind of person that you need to be, or candidate rather. Like when you're sitting down an interview and you are, I don't know, you're a doctor, but you also can code, that can help you down the long road. So the more holistic your skills are, the better you're going to be.
Quick question, Ribka, and for all of you guys, and piggybacking on that, would you guys agree with me, and anyone who's been to college, even parents, Kelsey, would you all agree that orientation period, when you go for those first couple of days of orientation and those 10 weeks of first 10 weeks of college are extremely critical, and you do not want to miss those days that you are encouraged to go to those different events for your field, for your major, for your, to meet your advisor. The reason why is because I meet a lot of freshmen, or I observe a lot of freshmen, and during orientation, the first couple of weeks, they're just, it's like they get so in the, the emotional high, the cloud nine, the freedom of being in college, that they don't take that first couple of weeks seriously, and it affects them.
I think there has to be a level of balance. So
yeah.
So I think there are a lot of programs, onboarding and orientation programs, that are super important for letting students feel grounded in where they've transitioned to. I know at least at NYU Abu Dhabi, I mean, orientation is really important because a lot of these students have moved to another country. Everybody's a kid. We're all trying to figure out what all this stuff means. There's a lot of culture shock, and people are so different. You don't know how to talk to people. You don't know how to greet people because not everybody greets the same. It's just a lot. There's a lot to think through. And so I think certain programs are really important to visit, to make relationships with mentors and all that. But I think the other side is I would say the first semester of college is incredibly emotionally demanding. That shift is revolutionary. And I mean, at least I'll speak for myself, at least in my life, those first, I would say those first 8 to 10 weeks are very transformative, in the sense that you make a lot of decisions that, for example, you may get into friendships and relationships with people that are more informed by you trying to replace support systems than it is about you needing that particular person in your life. You may make academic decisions and try to go down an academic road that really is more a response of you wanting to act on something out of pressure than it is out of interest. There's a lot of decisions that make it made hastily. So I think, and when it comes to those first weeks of onboarding, I think part of it is being able to be active and present in the programming that's there for you. But then the other part is knowing when to back off, and knowing when to take time for yourself, and knowing when to ask yourself the ugly questions that nobody wants to ask. about to what extent you should be involved and to what extent you have to remind yourself who you are and why you're doing what you're doing.
That's good. Did any of you, yeah, how many, all of you are third, I think Ribka's a junior, right? Senior?
Rising sophomore.
Oh, sophomore. Did any of you, if you want to share, because I know a lot of students, they did well, they graduated successfully, but their freshman year was like, I know a student who had basically went from valedictorian to like the worst of the worst. So do y'all have some things that you learned from your first semester?
Yeah, I think for me, it was just like the academic rigor of college and universities. Like, I mean, you expect like, yeah, college is gonna be hard, but it was it was hard. And I think also like the amount of that is just on yourself. It's up to you to go to class, to reach out to your professor, to advocate for yourself, to get help if you need it. Like the thing is, it can be overwhelming because there's a lot of support. There's the writing center, there's tutoring, there's office hours, graduate student like help. So there's a lot of options, but so that can be like, where do I turn to? But again, like it has to, like the agency is placed on you to really be the one to like reach out and to do all that work. So that was one thing that was like kind of, I had to adjust to and kind of really stabilize myself and kind of ground myself in what works for me and, pursuing those avenues of help.
That's good.
I think I'm the youngest on the panel, and freshman year just kind of happened. And so
congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That's a big deal.
It was quite the journey. And you get hit, man. Tatyana and Collins like said that, but I just want to reiterate. You get hit with so many things. You might focus on things that like aren't as important, but you need to make sure that that you're on top of the academics, of course, that you're like allowing yourself to transition. And what Tatyana said about the asking yourself the questions, that is like very, very important. If you keep like deluding yourself, it's not going to help you in any sense. If you keep telling yourself, oh yeah, I'm doing this for the right reasons, when you're clearly not, whether it's pursuing a major that you have no interest in, like nothing at all, or whether you are befriending someone just for like superficial reasons, like you really need to kind of step back and like allow yourself to be transition from that one place in high school to college, especially if you're like very distant from your like family in terms of distance, and also reaching back to like your old life. I think I'd suggest that once in a while, just to get that familiarity, because the second year, like you're hit with so much overwhelming, whether it's like trying to keep on top of academics with the office hours and all of that, and all these new people. Like when you see old faces, you feel comfortable. And even though like college isn't about comfort, there needs to be moments of that, just so that you're grounded.
Let me ask you this too, for all of you, with regards to, I hope I didn't lose my train of thought. Wasn't important. Sorry. Oh yes, how do you ask for help? One of the things I've observed with college students is, it's not that, even with students I've taught, like we live in a society, and even African culture, we have a lot of Africans here. I think in a lot of cultures, especially when we have a patriarchal culture, and also at the same time an authoritative culture where you don't you kind of look at certain people in authority from a place of you do what they tell you. And so, and especially with, I have my own issues with the school systems, but like students have been taught to do, right? They've been, unless you've been raised like to be a thinker, and unless you've been to a school that really provides a space for your voice to be heard, a lot of students have been raised to don't ask questions, right? So when you have this freedom, when you're allowed to ask questions, professors are intimidated by me, and I'm like, yo, just call me Deuce. I don't even care about the doctor or all the extra stuff. I don't even have a doctorate, but like, it's still intimidating for them. So how did any of you have that experience, and what are some advice you can give on how to ask for help from the psychological to the practical?
Yeah. This is something I was gonna add to the question surrounding like tips for middle school. I was gonna say, and that just definitely rolls into this, is like building those soft skills, like being able to, like the first one I was gonna say is like being able to write and being able to like write about yourself and advocate for yourself. But a second soft skill is definitely like being able to ask questions and ask questions of authority figures and really figure out, like, you know, why are you doing some of the things you're doing, or like what, like how, like sometimes the teacher's able to really effectively communicate like why you're learning algebra in 8th grade or 7th grade. But like being able to ask those questions early and build relationships with teachers, one, it'll help you get recommendations when it comes to high school, but two, like definitely freshman year, I was struggling in classes and the teachers would say, here are my office hours, my door's open, come in. Like TAs will say, TAs are teacher and assistants, who are like more peer level people who can help you with classes. They'll say, here are my office hours, my door's open, come in, but I would never go. And I would never ask questions in class. I would just be quiet because there's also this, we talked about this earlier in a different conversation, but imposter syndrome, and like not trying to look and trying to look like you're supposed to be here and like sound like you're supposed to be here and that you know what's going on, when sometimes it's okay to not. But something I had to learn my freshman year was when you don't understand, there are people like paid to basically to like help you get there. And if you don't learn to ask the questions and advocate for yourself and just put yourself in spaces for people to be able to like give you that extra boost and lift you up, then it's really a struggle. And then you try to look for it when you're within yourself and when there's really a community that can really like support you. So something I definitely had to learn was being able to like open my hands and say, hey, I don't get this. Can you help me get this? And they really are there for you, and they're not that, like once you realize that they are there for you, it's really easier to ask those questions.
That's good. That's really good.
Because like you'll be in class and you might think that you're the only one that's lost. Well, we're in like online classes now, but I'll text my friend like on the Zoom like chat or whatever, like, are you following this? And she'll be like, no, like, what's going on? And so like we both later reach out. But like one thing that I suggest is, like, if you're scared to like personally ask them, shoot them an email. I mean, it doesn't hurt. And there's no like in-person contact. I mean, it's something that I think people should get over, like, and also there's this thing where I'm not sure if the other panelists relate, but like sometimes you look at a professor and it's like you think that they're this like wise old soul that like knows everything that has to do with their subject, and they know a lot, like they know so much, they have their degrees on it, but they're also like, they can also like joke around, and just like high school teachers that you're probably intimidated of, like, again, like they have a life outside of school as well. And so I think breaking the ice, you know, asking them about their lives might make it easier to get that help, because the second you get like a personal connection, you can like go ahead and ask. But there's also just like shooting them an email if you have no idea about a specific topic. I remember I used to do that the fall semester a lot, and it worked out for me. And then spring, I got more comfortable with actually talking to them.
And you know what, guys? Like, this is something that I tell my students all the time, and it makes me vulnerable, because you do have the students who want to always complain, but they not willing to take responsibility for their actions. But in essence, professors, faculty, staff are there to serve you. You pay them to serve you. When you have that mindset of I'm paying thousands of dollars, to get an education, yes, follow the guidelines because they have a life too. The email hours and whatever. But if your professor's not reaching out to you, like if I gotta sit by your office until certain time, then so be it. And there are chains of command. So you may have to reach out to the chair and the dean, but they're there to serve you. And and that's how I look at it with my students. Like, and they help me, like you said, Ribka, my students help me become a better teacher. So.
Kelsey, do you have something to say?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
go ahead, Kelsey. Sorry.
Okay, so like I said, I'm new to Zoom. I'm 29, I'm old, right, compared to all of you. So I just figured out how to unmute myself, but I've enjoyed this whole entire discussion. Seriously, like, I grew up in a family that C's were for degrees, right? So I went through high school, I did my best and everything, but I went to college, and I went to college just because it was the next step. Health and everything was just in my heart, so I went for kinesiology, and that was my first bachelor's degree. So I went through my senior year, and then I worked for an assisted living community, and then in that year I decided that, oh my gosh, I want to do more. Like, I want to do nursing, I want to care for them, like bedside, have more of a personal connection, and be able to help people more thoroughly, and just do more for them in order to possibly save lives or whatever. So I went into that so nervous because I'm internally a very shy person that has to be pushed out of their comfort zone, which Sophia knows. So she pushes me consistently, even now. But anyways, going back to the point, I went for my nursing degree. I still had to wait because I was still in my kinesiology degree, and had to wait till I had to get accepted, right? So then I kept on studying, got accepted, went through. I was still so shy. I was so shy just to interact with anyone on a personal level, because nursing is just so personal, privately, and just talking wise, spiritually. You don't know. I went to school in Tyler, Texas. So it's in the Bible Belt. I went to school at Mother's, and it's very Baptist. So they're very open to prayer and everything. So they don't mind, right, about spiritual level. But here, then after college, anyways, I got accepted, thankfully. Although throughout my first couple of years and whatnot, I was a social butterfly, as you would say. And I grew into getting more serious about my education. And then thankfully through my science courses, I grew more serious. So that helped me get into nursing. So through my nursing degree, I went thoroughly, and then got my first job at MD Anderson in Houston. So oncology became my heart. There, it's a lot more cultural. There's so many people coming out throughout different parts of the world. So I have to ask them, hey, can I pray for you? Because my faith is Christian. I'm non-denominational, so that's how I am with my faith. So if they're struggling, especially with oncology, they're in their maybe last stages. So I have to ask them, can I pray for you? Or can I just speak good vibes or whatever to you? and so I can do so. You just have to connect with people, right? You have to learn people. You have to just learn how everyone grows up differently. Okay, we're all our own individual people. We all learn very differently, and I've just learned that through nursing. Like I'm one person. I have grown up very narrowly, and basically have learned just a lot through learning through different people, and it's opened up my mind so much to where it's not just through education as schooling as it is through just learning through everyone you meet and becoming more social and getting out of your comfort zone, as Tatyana said and as everyone else has said, is pushing yourself, get to know people. Just push yourself out of your comfort zone, get to know them, and learn from everyone as much as you can, just to know there's just different personalities, different ways that you can open up to people, and you can learn from them, and you can teach people as well. For sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think just like also like on that point, it's like, you know, it's just a simple, like, you know, when what John said about building soft skills, like a simple, you know, how was your day, to start a conversation is a good kind of like skills to those kind of skills to develop, like John mentioned. You know, how to pick up a phone call, how to call. To this day, you know, I have friends who will be like, yo, can you know, make the pizza order, you know, have anxiety with like making a phone call. So getting comfortable with those kinds of things, because a lot of interviews and a lot of opportunities are going to require you to be in those kinds of settings where you speak to people face to face, eye contact, all those kinds of things. Coach?
Definitely.
Can I also just share, and I'm not gonna divert, but I'm gonna divert. I want to say, Kelsey, I celebrate and I appreciate you for just sharing that. You know, on so many different levels. You know, going back to school, that's a whole different ball game. You know, going back to school and starting, and then opening up and meeting different people, and sometimes it's easy to be in our shell. I know, like, I'll be real. I tell a lot of Africans in Texas, get out of your Kenyan shell and go and meet people from other parts of the world, you know. And then on top of that, I want to celebrate you too, because we're going through a lot of turmoil in this country. And, you know, you being here, and then also we having people from all over the world here watching, and we get to show that our world can be beautiful, and that our world can be unified, and our world can change. And it's really up to, I'm not discrediting the generations before, but we are the ones following through. So even with regards to the topic of education, with the fact that we're, you know, we're working to support SustainHope, you know, we are the generation and generations that can change our world. So I just wanted to share that it's bigger than just a degree and a diploma. So I thank you and thank as you guys share. I want to flow into asking this question. I know time again is on the move. College, when it comes to expenses, you know, Stella asked a very powerful question. College is expensive. You know, any tips about that? And so, you know, if anyone wants to add, you know, tips on financial aid, you know, tips on, you know, scholarships, you know, anything relating to I'll be transparent. I grew up in Kenya in one of the most influential families. And so when I was an international student and I didn't have to worry about money, and when 2007, 2008 came, the whole world was affected. And I didn't know how to handle education. And it was a matter of, thankfully, I knew how to ask for help. And, you know, I had the people who could vouch for me to hold, you know, to have admissions. I mean, is it admissions? People who take care of the registrar's office, whatever, give me some time and buy me some time. So money's such a big issue, no matter where you're at, with regards to college. So anyone want to share on that?
I can take a stab at it. I think, and I think I also saw a question about like when is it like good to start applying for scholarships. There's a lot of, and that's another thing also, like there's a lot of like good resources online, but there's also a lot of like ones that will waste your time. You just need to be really like intentional, like really careful about which ones you pick. Like for example, like the big names that you're sure of are going to be valid, like Coca-Cola, the Bill Gates, and all the big names that are like verified and have been doing this for a long time are safe applications to really invest time in. But a lot of the smaller ones can be like oftentimes just a waste of time and just like take you through ads to a lot of turmoil. But beginning in high school, starting to really kind of parse out like a list, making a list of deadlines and application requirements. If it's like a recommendation letter, whatever it may be. Coca-Cola has like semi-finalist scholarships and finalist scholarships, and you get flown out to Atlanta and like all these things. So looking into those programs is really good. And then the other side of that is financial aid. My experience has been, I go to Columbia, they give need-based financial aid, so there's no merit-based. Like you don't get a scholarship from the school based on your academics, because this is how they do it. But there are institutions like UTD, University of Texas at Dallas, that will give you money based on how well you performed in high school. So there are merit-based on top of financial, like need-based. And so what need-based means is they base the amount of money they give you on your family's income. If you are living in a single parent household, if you're by yourself, or if you have both parents in the house, you submit the tax documents. There's a whole process for it. Submit the tax documents, and like they do a calculus based on how many resources they have, and I don't know, they don't disclose that math behind the curtains, but they will give you a package and they will offer you, okay, this is how much money we can give you in grants, need-based grants, and this is the cost of attendance, and then the subtraction you would have to cover either in loans, or if you can do a payment plan. There's a variety of different options. Now I think one thing that's usually intimidating with undergraduate education is like the loan aspect, like because there's like a lot of like loan servicers, and like even with government loans it's still very complicated, and like there's all these talk about America is like trillions of dollars in student loans. But I think it's one of those things where you have to look at the return on investment. Like what is the other side of it? If you didn't go to school and take out this loan, like what would be your alternative, right? So that's kind of another consideration. But as far as like financing, there's a lot of routes for it.
Start early for sure. This is another thing that you should add to your list, because my brother, who's a sophomore now in high school, but he got a grant when he was in 8th grade for, I'm pretty sure it was like $1,000. So it was in that ballpark, and it was for this project that he did. It wasn't even based on grades. It wasn't that he had this extensive application or anything. He just turned in a project that he was really invested in, and so I would recommend, like as young as middle school, to go ahead and start applying for them. There's so many scholarships that like loan should be your last resort. And also talk to your counselors. I remember when I was applying, I was eligible to not even pay for like the applications for applying for colleges, which can add up. They were like $70 per application, and I applied to like 16 schools, so you do the math, it's a lot of money. And so just talk to your counselors. There's ways to like wiggle out of paying for stuff like that, for standardized testing. Like ask as much as you can, and like Colin said, there's some verified sources that you can get scholarships from. And there's some scholarships that will give you money if your parents make like a certain threshold. There's one that I applied to in middle school and in high school. It was the John. Wow, why am I forgetting now? But I'll get it really quickly as soon as I like look it up. and it was they provide like a full ride for whatever school you went to, so look for that. Again, counselors are really key players in this, so ask around, and also ask people who are already in college for information.
I have a question. How do you, Collins brought up the scholarships, and then, and yourself too. How do you deal with how do you deal with confidence in applying for those scholarships? Have any of you applied for scholarships? Like, how did you deal with that? Because you're competing with a lot of people, and unless we would hope every parent like tells every kid like you're unstoppable, you can achieve. But even as a human being, you still have those mental barriers. So how have you guys handled that situation, or even taking the loan and trusting that you're going to get it back, and then some more, in terms of your career?
Honestly, if somebody your age is able to win a scholarship, like why shouldn't you? And like the confidence barrier, like I was anxious about it because I'd read all about the success stories, and that's the first trap. Don't do that. Like you would read about like all of their accomplishments, and then you think that you'd like never measure up, but like every circumstance is different. Like just because, even if you copy and paste everything that student did to get the scholarship, there's plenty of students that probably did similar activities that didn't get it, especially if the scholarship's pretty like competitive. But again, personally, I was like, if my like lack of confidence is going to get in the way of getting money, that's not the situation. That's not the move. So just keep applying, and be like realistic about it. Like apply for things that are like within within what, for what I'm trying to say is like things that you think you can get, but also go for things that you think are a little less achievable. But yeah, go for it. Don't let that lack of confidence get to you.
John shared, that's a great point, Ribka. John said, myshali.com, shared in the chat, is a great resource to search for and keep track of scholarships that you qualify for. So that's really good. Thank you so much, John. Anybody else want to share on that? And even just share about, and guys, just letting you guys know, we will continue up until 8 o'clock, and we'll between now and 8, around maybe the last 15 minutes, we'll make sure to have Q&A. But you can keep sending questions if you have any questions. So anyone want to share? Like, I feel like, there's so many different facets, just like when we talked about academic success with regards to the financial aspect. What do you do if you've got to work and at the same time go to school,
Yeah. I'll share on that because I've been working my entire undergrad career, and balancing jobs and school is a challenge. But again, it's one of the first things that really helped me is talking to students in similar financial situations and figuring out how they did it and how they got through. So I guess my guidance is for as far as getting to college and paying for the applications. Like, again, My Scholarly is a great resource because you kind of fill in, it's Q&A, like what schools are you applying to, what are your interests, what are your passions, what are your extracurriculars, and it kind of hands you just a big list of scholarships that you can apply for. You can sort them by like award number and things like that. But it really helped me keep track of like places I was applying. You tell them when you're about to apply, you tell them when you have applied, and you tell them if you've got it, and they kind of like adjust your chart based off of that. So it's really helpful. But then, and then getting to college, thinking about financials is always something you have to do. There could be really good resources on campus. Like I know my school has coaches that can kind of help you budget, help you like learn how to be financially literate as a student. It's like, because you have to pay for books, you might have to pay for meals, and in some cases you have to pay maybe for like unexpected things like trips and things like that. But really getting a jump on that early and getting mentors who've been in college longer and like have had to kind of build up their systems for managing money was really helpful for me. And then again, like the balancing jobs and school for me goes back to the question of like time, because it comes down to a time commitment that you have to make. And the best jobs on campus are the ones where you can do homework at work. Like library jobs are great. I've had a library job my entire college career, and I just go to a desk and sit down and do work. And if somebody needs my help, I'll give them help and come back and do my homework. So like Tatyana mentioned, doubling up those things is really helpful too.
I have a question, just piggybacking on that. Were you all, this is to all of you guys, were you all confident in asking for help? And was it something that developed, was it parents that, like, just so people can realize, there's someone who's like, that it is possible.
Mm-hmm. It's a journey. Like I said, my freshman year, I wanted to act like everything was okay. But when you really learn that, like, if everybody does that, it's a railroad to wreck. And so reconciling that, like, everybody needs help and everybody needs to lean on others. And definitely, like, my sophomore year, I got a lot better at asking for help from professors, asking for help from financial aid office, calling people at the financial aid office, explaining my situation humbly, and then seeing what they can do. Because you'll be surprised what's possible. That's throughout the entire college process, to and through.
That's good. And that's why sometimes it does pay to go. I'll just be transparent. There are colleges that it may be cheap, but you may not get the value of the experience there. So sometimes working hard in high school to go to a school that not necessarily is like a Stanford or Yale, those are great schools, but one that that's part of the research, doing the research to find college that fits your needs. Tatyana, I saw you also, you nodded, so I just wanted to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just be honest. I hate asking my family for money. And I think I sort of went into college with that in mind. Like I took a second job before asking my parents for anything. And I think that I'm very blessed in the sense that the majority of my expenses have been covered by the school. But I think there are also a lot of things that happen outside of, right? There's a lot of things you have to pay for outside of, your immediate needs, that do add up. And so I just wanted to validate that it can also be really intimidating to ask family members for help, ask people you love for help, even if you really need it. And I'm absolutely that person. And I mean, I think when I took on the second job my sophomore fall, and I think time-wise it got really, really hectic. I'm sure Ribka can remember, I was just bouncing around campus 24/7 enough. And it wasn't cool at all. But that was me, not having I just didn't have the heart to ask for help. And thinking back, I probably should have, because I put a lot of pressure and burden on myself when I know my family would have helped, and I'm not quite sure what I was trying to protect, but yeah, I would say it's worth asking for help in the meantime.
I think there's a level of a layer of pride within all of us, and I think that goes across all cultures, but I don't know, African seems a little more emphasized, maybe because I'm part of it, but there's this like sense of like, why would I ask when I can do it myself? Like I'm so independent, I'm so strong, like, and the second I do ask, like, I become a loser, weak, etc. All those nasty adjectives, right? But like the second you do ask, things get easier. Life gets ameliorated. And also, I wanted to stress that, like after you do get in, to whatever college, especially if it's like a pricey one, don't be afraid to ask like for any sort of resource on campus, because some of these colleges are hiding like literal gems. So whether it's like a high-tech camera, I think that's the case in our school. Like people ask for these like really high-tech cameras and they get them, and it's like they cost so much money, but the college just has them in like some storage room, and they're just like, go, like you literally just have to like unlock it and check it out from like the media space, right? And so you'd be surprised at the amount of resources, at how expensive, like how much expensive equipment is around. And so don't be afraid to ask, and you shall receive.
Yeah. Just to also, we have Pastor Bintru is here. He's about to leave, so I was trying to give him a moment to speak. Pastor, are you here? If you could drop a comment in the chat.
Yeah, I think he's on.
Matt, unmute him.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Pastor.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Sorry to interrupt. I have been in a meeting since I don't know for how many hours, but it is one of the great. I love what you guys are doing. Coach, please. I haven't seen you for a while, man. Good to see you, and good to see everyone here. You know, I wanted to stay until the end, but I wanted to chime in and and just encourage you in what you're doing. Somebody once told me that even postage stamps become useless when they stack up about themselves, that we are here for one another. We are not just here for our own selves. And what you're doing is, I wish that at my time, I had that kind of information. But one or two things I would say is, whatever you do it with all your heart. Whatever you do it with all your heart. Most of us, we fail because we have a lot of interest, but we have very few passion about something. What grabs your heart, where your passion is, you can succeed. Doesn't matter whether you want to start a cleaning company or you want to be a doctor or you want to be an engineer, but always know where your passion is. When you add passion with belief and you have conviction, then you have success. Don't always go for money, because money will never make you happy. If it could, there's no reason why we have so many people who have money but they still commit suicide. It's not because money is not the solution. Go where your passion is, because I believe that God created each one of us unique and we are important in our own way. And I usually say this: be original, be yourself, because many people will die cheap copies of other people. So be yourself, be original. Don't be afraid to try something new, because that's what you were created to be. So whatever you do it well. And always don't live for yourself. The shortest way to be unhappy in life is just to live by yourself. Those who can, and I know the panelists here are very great people and great resource. I pray that, and I hope that you will be very open at the end of the day and at the end of the discussion, for those who joined in today here to be able to reach out to you so that you can hold somebody's hand. Because true joy happens when you lift somebody up. And as you carry people and as you lift them up, guess what? You also get lifted up. So it is a privilege to have all of you to be able to come here and be able to share with your knowledge. I had, quite a lot. But at the end of the day, whatever you have heard, it is better to put one idea into action than 1,000 good intentions. If you can live with one idea, put it to action, is better than having 1,000 good intentions. Because again, I'm a believer, I'm a pastor. I didn't start as a pastor. I could have given you my experience. I did production engineering. but I had to shift and do ministry. And so I am an engineer for people now. I'm not engineer for metals, but I thank the Lord where I am even right now, because that's what I love to do. So God bless you. And please, do what you can, change what you can. Don't be afraid to change, because only stubbornness and willingness, they say, is the energy of fools. So change. Tomorrow you'll be different. Be willing to change and be somebody who is better. Don't settle for less. Don't settle for less. Maybe we have new presidents here. Maybe we have new inventors here. Just let the sky be your limit. God will give you energy. God bless each one of you. Thank you, Coach Deuce. Man, good to see you. And thank you, everyone. Stay blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you so much. Powerful. Powerful. Wow. I'm sitting on that for my own life. Thank you so much, Pastor Benchu. I think, again, Collins and his family didn't just put this just for the sake of information, but for transformation. So thank you guys again. So I wanted to talk about leadership / extracurricular activities, but there's a question that I think is important to ask, especially in this day and time. And the question is, how do you navigate? So we talked about the academic, but we know it's beyond the academic, right? So how do we navigate? For a majority of you here, you're a minority. How have the panelists navigated being a minority on the college campus from the academic standpoint and from the just the campus life? If anyone would like to share that, I think it's very important. I find that being a professor at the college I'm at, there's things that I've done and I'll be successfully, but before any of that, it was just the fact that my presence was there. A lot of college students felt like there's a place of hope for them. And now I had to fulfill and make sure that I followed through with the trust, but it was because they didn't always, I'm not saying this is your college experience, but some of my students didn't always feel like they counted. They didn't feel like they counted when it came to financial support. They didn't feel like they counted admission support. Not all of them, and not all faculty and professors were unsupportive. But it's a very important question and a very important thing to think through. So any thoughts on that, navigating college as a minority or a person of color?
I guess I can start. I see Ribka laughing a little bit because I think the situation's a little funky at our school compared to a lot of American institutions. We're an American institution based in the UAE, and so the way that our student body is set up is that there's not necessarily a minority. So we have like a good sized chunk of American students. We have a good sized chunk of Emirati students. Which makes up, I think, 20% of the student population, and then the other 80% is from anywhere in the world. So the concept of minority is a little bit complicated on campus because it looks a lot different, because it's like, what does being a minority mean? So even though the concept of minority is different, that doesn't necessarily mean that anti-Blackness isn't a thing. So what you'll experience is, for example, like we don't have a lot of Black representation in our faculty. So we have, I think we received there were 2 hires, so it went from 6 to 8 Black faculty members out of 260, which is unbelievable and absolutely unacceptable. So, and our campus is also 10 years old. So we're a part of New York University, which is pretty old, but our campus itself is very young. So I think part of at least my experience at our school has been understanding that in some moments when you need space for yourself, you kind of have to build it from scratch. Or you have to know people who know how to build it for you, which I think can add a very strong burden to the like lived experience of Black students, because it's the conflict of creating spaces as students that we're really not, it's not our job to make, is very, very, very common at our school. And there's a lot of back and forth because it's like, well, this space is American dominated, or this space is, is like Islamophobic, or this, or like there's so many factors that you have to think about in terms of how to make a space that accommodates all types of identities under the Black scope. So I think it's been a big challenge, at least in my experience, with positive results though. There have been some incredible spaces for Black students that have been spaces for healing, for belonging, that have really, really shown up and shown out. But it is one of the challenges of being at a young global university.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you for that unique experience that you shared. Anyone else?
Very, very well said. I just want to also add that it can be really nice to have a support system within the students, among the students, excuse me. And it's for me personally, when I like did go on campus, because there aren't as many Black students specifically in our school. We don't have a majority, but it's not like we're anywhere near that. The second you want to sort of talk about anything that has to do with, our specific experience, there are students that are always willing to do so, and it's really warm and comforting, especially when there is like space that was made. I just want to give a shout out to Tatyana, who created a space called Aziza, and it's an enriching place for Black women to be together, to laugh, to learn, and just have that space to just sort of like thrive off each other's energy. And I was honored to be a part of the committee later on, but it's just a matter of if there isn't a space made, you gotta do it yourself. And sometimes there are existing platforms as well that I lean into. There's one group called Africa Global, which is huge. It embodies a lot, because it's not just the continent, it's also diaspora. And it encompasses so much, but again, it's like people who have somewhat similar experiences to you. So if you don't see any space, then there's always students that you're able to go to.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback off of that, I agree for sure. I think student groups organizations were like a big way for me to kind of initiate building a community. Just because I think that's kind of in the tradition of college or undergraduate, like 4-year traditional institutions, kind of like when you get there, like, especially if you're, and I think I saw a question like earlier about the advantages and disadvantages of going to a school out of state or far away from home. It could be seen as a disadvantage, or actually could be even proved to be a disadvantage because you don't really have anybody in the new city. So I went to New York City, I had visited for a day, but I never really been there, didn't really have connections or family that really lived out there that I could if an emergency came up, lean on immediately. So that was kind of a bit of an intimidation. And with that, we are looking for people to start building a community, finding friends and kind of creating that circle and everything. And so student group organizations become a really easy way to do that, because that's really where, people who identify with the group's mission. So for example, like Ribka mentioned, we have an African Students Association at my school. There's a Black Students Organization, Black Pre-Medical Society. There's so many that are based on different identities that you can, look up and just go show up to, because that you are guaranteed that this is a space for people who share this common thing. So, if you pull up to the African Students Association, there's some certain ties to being, African or African descent. Pre-Medical Society, somebody, who is interested in your same pre-professional route. And from there, you can, start talking about, hey, African current events, or like, hey, which, this album came out. And you start building relationships and kind of finding people that are similar to you. And you start building those relationships and building those friendships. And you can even exercise some, of your passions. Like I have, like, same to Ribka, I also have a passion for leadership. Like being in those organizations, being in the planning committees for events, trying to, find ways to bring community together and kind of link students together, and reaching out to the incoming freshmen to let them know the presence of other people who are like them and interested in getting to know them on campus can be really, kind of a big help in kind of easing the anxieties of going to a school far away from home. So I think an advantage though is like it definitely builds like a lot of your independence and kind of helps you grow in a lot of skills that you will need as far as like being an adult. Like, you know what I mean? You have to keep your own space, how to manage your own time, like, because no one's going to tell you when to go to sleep. No one's going to tell you when to go to study, when to go to eat. So, having a full autonomy of your time, of your money, and just like of your space helps you kind of like get that kind of experience, but also in a space where that, there's security and there's structure because you still have classes and you still have all these other things. So that's kind of like as far as like succeeding as a minority. I think I also touched base a little bit on the mental health aspect. Just because that's another like angle to it. Like, a lot of times you especially when you go to predominantly white institutions or like schools that like are quote unquote elite or whatever, you can kind of feel this imposter syndrome, they call it. So imposter syndrome is essentially the feeling where like you question whether you deserve to be there. And this is something that came up a long time early in the discussion as well, like comparing yourself. I think when Ribka was talking about scholarships, when you're reading success stories or like you're comparing yourself to your peers, and you have students that are getting 4.0 just like off the rip, like freshman, fall, like they're coming in, they're taking the same classes as you, they're still getting A's. You're over there getting your little B+, and like it's like, whoa. So that can really shake up your confidence, but I think it's important to like really lean on those communities that you build and to really kind of establish that sense of self-efficacy and just kind of understanding your purpose, and also making sure like you tell yourself like, if you got accepted to this school is because you were qualified. And just because you may have a hard moment here and there with a class, like that doesn't necessarily define your entire ability. You might still be strong in community building, leadership, extracurriculars, like, or other things, and like maybe you're still just kind of like finding your course of study. So there's a lot of aspects to it, but like I definitely want to to reiterate like the confidence part. It can definitely be kind of shooken up, but I encourage you all to kind of like stay firm in your identities and kind of like your pride in yourself and your capabilities and abilities.
And that's powerful you said that, Collins, because again, going back to your career or even just making money, people will pay you for the value you bring to the table. And if you're just so caught up on it, and this again, it's a paradigm shift. You're just so caught up on getting a 4.0, but you're not willing to extend yourself, then you're not. People are gonna hire you because you're a leader, which means you're hardworking, which means you're all these other things. So anybody want to add to that? John, any thoughts? I know.
Yeah, no, I mean, y'all are speaking the truth and doing a lot of work for your communities. I know that. So I think that's so important for students to be able to lean on. Like for me, I'm moving into senior year, I'm going to be staffing the Black diaspora themed dorm, African diaspora themed dorm, which has been a community on campus that like kind of centers the experience of Africans and African American students and Caribbean students and anybody else from across the diaspora. That space is a space I lived in freshman year, and it's one of those communities where, again, like you come home to a community of people who at least resonate with your experience of being a minority and being like not being in space that was made for you, or not being in a space where your narrative is necessarily centered or even thought about in a lot of situations. And having people from that experience, especially from like all 4 class years, who are able to tell you like, this is how I advocate for myself in this space. This is how you can kind of find a way around some of the anti-Blackness, racism, et cetera, that you're going to confront and things like that. It just kind of takes a layer of the uncomfortability and the culture shock off your shoulders, and it really helps you kind of acclimate a lot better into a climate that, again, wasn't necessarily set up for you and your perspective. So, I mean, just resonating with a lot of what you all said, like the community is such an important part of that. And if you can find that community, it's really great. And if you have to build it, like, props to you. And like, it really helps a lot of students kind of combat some of the uncomfortability, some of the lack of confidence in themselves. But yeah, Colin said it, like, be really try to do your best to hold on to who you are and where you're from. And it can really take you a lot of places that you'll be surprised.
Yeah, powerful. And on that note too, like on the flip side is don't get so caught up. There's that mindset too of just staying to the same group of people. I mean, we live in a global society. I'm guessing Tatyana and Ribka, and this is similar to my experience because I came to from Kenya to the United States because my dad wanted me to be exposed, right? And that's why I'm guessing part of it, maybe not all of it, was because you were getting exposed to the rest of the world and how the rest of the world works and through an education experience. So we also want to make sure we're learning from other people different from us, even as far as different races, different groups, different communities, different genders, and religions. So now we're gonna open up to Q&A. Anyone who has any questions, and I think again we've intersected through a whole bunch of things that from self-care to academic success to leadership to so anyone have any questions for the panelists that you have, whether it's personal, whether it's a general question regarding college life, college success.
Della had a question from earlier about our majors. We could just repeat them.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned. I'm an economics major, and I might be doing poli-sci as a minor.
What's poli-sci? Poli-sci.
Political science, sorry.
There you go.
Sorry, the connection.
And you don't have to become a politician to get into poli-sci, right?
Of course not. It's just all about interest.
Love that, because that's what a lot of people think.
Yeah, that's what my dad thought.
I'll go next.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, real quick. I'm double majoring in human biology and African American studies.
I'm a neuroscience and behavior major, but I'm also concentrating in public health.
I have a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
No, it's okay. I'm a social research and public policy major, and I'm completing a minor in film and new media.
That's awesome. So I have a question. Actually, it was one of the questions that were sent before the event started. And what extracurricular activities can I do to gain interest in the health field? Did you answer that, Collins? You did.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess a general question can be what can you do to what are some ways you can use extracurricular activities to benefit you towards your career success?
I think I could take a time about that. I think you need to also look at extracurricular activities as like, especially when you're in college, more so than in high school, is like a way to like kind of, as an outlet, like
self-care
outside of self-care, outside of pre-professional, whatever it is. I've been doing dance since freshman year.
Wow.
Like the moment I got to campus, I knew I loved dancing. There was a relatively new African dance group, and I joined, and it was super cool people, and we just like listen to Afro beats and just like dance and make routines and everything. It was my first time doing organized dancing, so that was like always like a workout, and also like just a fun moment to be around people, just like laugh and just do all this cool stuff. So kind of having a healthy balance of like professional, like pre-professional, or like things that you're doing for obviously for career building purposes and to kind of get the skills that you need for your professional growth, but also things that you enjoy doing and that you love doing, things community service. I love mentorship, so involved in a couple of mentoring programs and, leadership, if it is, joining a pre-professional society, but also in a leadership capacity. I've been treasurer for a lot of organizations over the years. So kind of finding your strengths and then aligning those with kind of a lot of the missions and activities that are on campus. I think this is one thing I wanted to add. It doesn't always have to be like career building, and like you can do some things that are fun that you enjoy doing, because that also shows that you are a human being and that you have, a well-rounded life, not just like a one-directional individual.
That's good.
Some people joined extracurriculars to hone a skill, such as speaking to like a large audience. And so there's like Model UN, there's debate for that specific genre, I suppose. But extracurriculars are definitely a great outlet. But if you want pre-professional sort of extracurriculars, then I would recommend during orientation, they always have some sort of fair that sort of markets themselves to the freshmen who don't know about them. And so I would pay attention to that. And also some professors or heads of departments might even recommend you to go to some of them. Like I remember a friend of mine got recommended to go to, it was like a business sort of student interest group. So yeah.
I wanted to plug sort of this, I guess these could be extracurriculars, but they're more short term, but things like conferences and things you don't necessarily have to be committed to time-wise to be interested in are very valuable. I'm
only laughing because I wish the rest of the world was thinking like you about professional development.
Well, thank you. That was my second job, by the way. This is like all the stuff I had to do. But yeah, conferences this is something a senior told me, and I was talking to her, but I was like, man, like I have all these things that I'm really interested in doing, but I don't want to dedicate so much time to them because I'm already doing the most. I'm not sleeping enough. And she was like, why don't you consider finding ways to engage in things where it doesn't have to be sustained engagement, but you can engage deeply for a short period of time. So at least for me, that's also been a way to travel as well. So there are like really dope conferences about very niche topics that may be relevant to me. Think like I'm really interested in community justice. So like if I can, spend a little while in Lebanon or like something like that, learning about something that's very important. And it's not too far away. That's a good way for me to learn how to solo travel, because you're finding a way to, you have a point B, so it's not so intimidating, but it's also a way to engage really deeply and not feel like it's something you have to do every week, every month for 2, 3, 4 years. You can let it go when you're done with it. So, yeah.
I think that also doubles up with networking too, because like at those conferences, you also meet people that are also as interested in those things as you are. Mm-hmm. And I think, there's something like if you've never experienced it, I encourage you to do so. Like having a passionate conversation with somebody about something that is of mutual interest is amazing, because you just could go on and on for hours. And so, yeah, those conferences are really good. And you can just meet someone, 2, 3 years down the line, it's a job offer, you know what I mean? So, networking is also like another aspect of that. Like I'd also like to point out to encourage you to do those things. I'm a big traveler as well. I'll take any and every reason to travel. So those conferences are definitely like a move. I think especially in the East Coast, when you go there, like a lot of the schools are very close to one another. UPenn, Harvard, Dartmouth, whatever. And they have like a lot of conferences, a lot of exposés for like med schools. You just take a bus, go for a weekend and, meet new people and kind of expand your network, because, like 10, 5, 9 years down the lane, you never know how, these people will cross your path again. And that's kind of the power of, especially with social media now, you can keep in touch with people for extended periods of time that you couldn't before.
Yeah. And definitely on,
No, go ahead.
Okay. Oh yeah, definitely on the note of travel. Thank you both for bringing that up. Like another thing that I think about, especially also in terms of community justice, is and in terms of self-preservation, it goes 3 ways. But I think something that I really appreciated in my last couple of years that I didn't really get to take advantage of as a freshman was like service opportunities and ways to give back to the community surrounding the schools. Especially if you think about the ways in which like a lot of these big institutions really impact housing and gentrification and displacement within the community surrounding. I think ways in which students can off campus to find space outside of campus and give back and push against some of that tide of injustice has been really helpful for me and fulfilling. So those are extracurricular opportunities that also do look really good on your resume, but they really provide a space for you to kind of feel like you're contributing to something maybe outside of like the ways in which you kind of gain education and other things from the schools. And so, yeah, getting the chance to travel off campus, getting the chance to engage with like youth in the area or engage with unsheltered people in the area is a really nice way to kind of round out your extracurriculars and find something to give back to.
And by the way, just letting all of you know, I think it would be very important to share, like, SustainHope is a great place to start, right? I know there's different ways one can serve. So whether it's, and I get it, college students don't have that much money. I will also say, as a former college student who thought I didn't have money and still was able to go out and do a lot of things, like, whether it's sponsoring $10 through SustainHope, but also figuring out a way to volunteer. And I'm sure Collins and his family will be more than willing to show you how you can support in the best way possible. So I have two more questions and then we'll be done. And I know we only have 5 minutes. And if any one person can respond to what's this schedule like in college? That's the first question. What is schedule like in college? I know it's different for everybody, but if you can give, I think most courses like 12 to 15 credit hours. I don't know if it's the same all over. But
I can hop on this one, I think, because I'm being pre-med, like, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm a pre-med, I have my major requirements, and then there's the concentration requirements. And then we also have this thing at Columbia, it's called the core. There's like a core list of classes you have to take. Scheduling in college is a little different from high school because you get to pick, well, you also get to pick in high school, but there's a broader range of classes you can pick from, and it's almost like a scramble for classes. So you have like a registration period, and you go on there, you have like your classes that you want to take, and there's a good chance that by the time you get there, if you're not a senior, it's probably full, and you have to get on the wait list, and this whole situation. But what Coach was kind of referencing to, there's you can take, I think in high school there's a dedicated number of classes you have to take, like like 8 classes or something like that. But in college they're set out in credits, and I think different institutions like number the credits differently. But credit hours like range from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. I think that's my university caps at 4. And the maximum you can take a semester is 18 credit hours. And you could petition to take more if you're doing like a course of study, like a double major or something that requires you to really kind of have that overextension. And if you're in the engineering school, I think the cap is 21. So they get to take a bigger course load. But yeah, it's one of those things where you really have to be intentional. I think Ribka mentioned this, that they do a 4-year plan at the beginning, mapping out all your classes at the early, and like understanding that just because you mapped it out doesn't mean that it's like set in stone. It's not a contract. It's just like for planning purposes, if you do choose to stick with this route, you already have it mapped out. And if it changes in the middle, meeting with the counselor, meeting with the mentor to kind of shift it. But that's kind of what scheduling looks like in college. It's kind of like a more flexible, but a little bit of a tug of war, kind of a competition thing. You have to kind of be really smart about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So last question, man, I wish we had more time. What are the major hindrances to low admissions of immigrants to Ivy League colleges, and how can we overturn this? And it also, if I can put it out there, you talk about anti-Blackness, there's a lot of, there's also data that has shown racism involved and a whole bunch of stuff. But let's stick to the question. Major hindrances to low admissions of immigrants to Ivy League colleges. How can we overturn this?
Yeah. Well,
I think it starts with something like this. Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
No, you got it.
No, I was going to quickly say, just reaching out to or kind of tapping into resources like this, getting the information, because I think the biggest thing is just not knowing. I think for me, I didn't really learn about like what it means to go to Columbia or go to a place like this until like beginning of my junior year towards the middle, like, you know, things like SAT prep, like I knew about the SAT, but how important, like the numbers that you need, what the application process looks like. Speaking to people and kind of getting that information is really the first step, because then you're really armed to kind of do what needs to be done to get there. But go ahead, John.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. It definitely starts with like these discussions and recognizing that there's an issue and things like that. I would say also that you'll be surprised how important it is that or how much power and leverage you do have as a student and as a parent to advocate for things like this. Especially at my school, there's a big culture of like student activism and demanding more from the institution in terms of things like this. And we have demands as a community in terms of like how we want to see admissions for Black students, for example, improve over the next 5 years, and how we want to see the school improve its support of like minority students and things of that nature. And so I know schools like a lot of Ivy League schools don't support international students in that way, because they don't have support for financial aid, for example, for students who don't have a social security and things like that. Like they can't get federal funding and things of that nature. And so I know from my experience, I had friends who couldn't apply to certain schools that I could, because they didn't support them in the simple way of like providing financial aid. And so finding ways that as you become a student and as you learn more about these issues, building coalition and advocating to administration for further changes that you need to see is a very viable way to kind of see these changes long term.
And vote.
Yeah.
Just remember. So any last thoughts? We have we're literally at 8 o'clock. Anyone want to share their last word? Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, man, this has been probably one of the greatest experiences I ever have had, to just sit and to learn from all of you. I grew up in a culture where young people sit and they're not to be seen, right? But we forget that as much as the elders have so much wisdom, the younger generation, the Gen Z, they also have wisdom because they're living in the moment. So we value y'all. We just truly appreciate all of you panelists. Kelsey, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. Collins, I don't know, I could say so much, but I just know that this is just the beginning for you as far as being a world changer. And I know we didn't get to see mom and dad and the brothers, but I just want to thank your mom. I've never said this to her directly, but she kind of is like a big sister mentor to me in how she's just a believer in people. And even as one who used to be in education, it gives me the strength to keep pouring in and believing in other people. So thank you, Mom. And for all of you amazing people, the young folk who they stayed for the whole session. Like y'all could be playing Black Ops right now, or man, thank y'all. Thank y'all. High schoolers, there's so many other things you could be doing. College students, thank y'all. This is a powerful moment. Do not take it lightly. Do not take it for granted. There is a recording, and anybody who wants the recording, reach out to Collins. I believe that repetition is the mother of learning and the father of action. So if you got to watch this recording over and over and over and over again, it will cause transformation. So thank y'all. Collins, any words? Kelsey?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Coach. Really appreciate you moderating this meeting. I just, also want to thank my friends here, John, Tatyana, and Ribka, for taking up the offer. I think, 3 hours out of your day. I mean, I'm just grateful that you guys were able to take that time and, come here and just share your experiences with the people that were able to join. everybody that was able to join, thank you guys so much also for sitting through this. It's, almost like a lecture. I can't imagine doing a 3-hour lecture. I don't think I've ever had a 3-hour lecture, but thank you guys so much for, sticking through with us and, your questions and engaging with the conversation. I think I'll just pass it over to Rosalind to give us a closing prayer, and then we can.
And thank you, Rosalind. I forgot to say thank you so much for facilitating in prayer. Appreciate you so much.
Oh, I was the one blessed because all of you guys are so awesome. You gave so much knowledge to people who don't even know you. So that's definitely part of helping each other. So I'm just glad that I was part of this. And again, thanks, Collins. That was a great job. And of course, Coach and all the panelists that gave all their stuff that they didn't have to, to share, but they did. and they gave great advices, and they gave also great resources of where to go looking for whoever asked a question for. And again, for everybody who tuned in, there was a large group, which was awesome. So it is time to say goodbye, and I'm going to be the one doing the prayers. So we're just going to thank God for this awesome day. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for, again, being in this meeting and in this Zoom. And clearly you are in it, and in all the information that was put out there, you are in it, Heavenly Father. For whoever got each and every information that they needed, Father, they were meant to be in this group and to listen in, Heavenly Father. We thank you. We love you. And we just pray that all this information will be used, and for the panelists that were there and gave all their ways that they've been growing up, learning from their parents, learning from their coaches, learning from all the resources that they have shared today that people can use. Heavenly Father, we pray that you continue to bless them, to cover them with the holy blood of Jesus, and for everybody who has tuned in also, that you cover them with the holy blood of Jesus. We thank you for always being there, even whatever is going on in the world, that you're always providing and taking care of us, Heavenly Father. We pray that you continue to protect us even in this day and age of things that we do not and cannot control, that you're in control, Heavenly Father. So we pray that you will always be in our lives, and that you will always protect us and cover us with your holy blood of Jesus. And as we're going to do our own things this evening, and as we're going to lay our heads, Heavenly Father, cover us also with the holy blood of Jesus. And until we get back to another beautiful Zoom meeting, hopefully we'll get to have more panelists, and for the ones who are here to help and encourage the students that are out in the world, Heavenly Father. So I thank you again. I pray, trusting and believing in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone, once again. Enjoy the rest of your evenings, and be blessed.